Well, I think Eddie's been held hostage by the Turner Enterprises. I'm just speculating here, by like cell shading little persons. It's a thing that happens to some of the best. But hopefully he'll make it. David's here. What's up, David? How you been?
Hey, pretty good.
I know we've had some ups and downs in our lives. Been sick, been well, hurt our backs, hurt our prides, but we've made it. It's pretty good. So Kirstie Alley's dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, Paranoid America jumping in. He made it. Yes. I was
Good
like,
timing.
oh man. I told him at the last second. I was like, dude, you know what? We're doing a show, Free the Mouse. I don't know if you have a second. And he's like, I can do this.
That's awesome. You caught me at the right time, man. Perfect.
Thomas, I'm super glad you made it. Well, there's a couple things that we have to discuss probably before we get to the mouse. Kirstie Alley was the first one because she died. I don't mean to say it like I'm excited. It's sad for me because I loved her in It Takes Two with the Olsen twins. You know what I mean?
Was she
Look Who's Talking?
I was going to say she was Look Who's Talking, right?
Yeah.
So Look Who's Talking 3 was the last movie that John Travolta did before he did Pulp Fiction, which was kind
Scientology and Kirstie Alley is the thing that just I feel like it's not.
So thank you. So this is the thing. Yeah. So the Mao game. The Mao game. You ever heard of a movie called The Mao Game?
Mao game. Let me see. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's an actual game, but there's a movie with Kirstie Alley, with original music by Vivian Kubrick. And it was like the last thing Vivian Kubrick did for the longest time. I have been unable to track down this movie. I've always wanted to see it.
No pictures, hard to find, black and white. Okay, all right. The Mao game. They're walking through the desert. I want to see this.
I wonder if I can find this copy.
Yeah, Thomas, get on this. I know that we can make this work.
Yeah, if anybody out there, please contact me with some link to how to find this freaking movie. I've been like, I'll buy it on DVD. I'll do anything I can. Where is it?
Here, we're gonna walk you through the storyline here. A teenage actor called Jordan Hyland is won as a prize in a card game between his actress mother and cancer-stricken grandmother. As her illness gets worse, Jordan and his grandmother take a road trip to Nevada desert to spend time with each other. All right, could be kind of interesting. Could be kind of interesting indeed. But the thing about Kirstie Alley was with the Scientology, and especially with Look Who's Talking, because Look Who's Talking gets on that whole idea of like you've got a Thetan that remembers more than your mind can remember. More than your mind's made up of memories, your soul is made up of memories, and this baby's like got a personality that's emerging and dealing with humans that have already learned to adapt and forget who they are.
Right. The timing is something with. So what year did this movie come out? Because Eyes Wide Shut,
89. Better.
Okay, yeah. So it was a decade later when Vivian Kubrick cut off all ties with friends and family over Scientology, and so that was always kind of the main headliner conspiracy of Eyes Wide Shut in the meta sense with his personal life was that he casted two leading Scientologists, Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, shortly after. His daughter was, for all intents and purposes, kidnapped. And so that ending of Eyes Wide Shut, where there's the two men from the party who kind of walk down the aisle, right before they have their ending conversation, it was kind of suggestive of this kidnapping type deal. And so I imagine that's how Kubrick felt about his inability to connect with his daughter anymore,
Man. I mean, the idea of, Miscavige taking over Sea Org also in 87. So right before the movie comes out. And so you have to remember also like the different time and what it was like before Miscavige was in charge of Scientology and all these people that were, a lot of these actors that were kind of forward thinking, they were trying to work on themselves and they thought this like sci-fi writer was cool. I think it's important to remember how different like the generations are, because it's like the difference between one dictator and another, right? I mean, or whatever you call that many OTs. I think they have a better term, like captain of the Sea Org.
I really like this thread too, that essentially the origins of Scientology was kind of birthed out of not being accepted in like the inner circle of Crowley's sort of like little entourage, where Hubbard always like really wanted to get in there and was just kind of like always like one or two sort of like people detached from being able to, cuddle up to Crowley directly at some point, or have like some kind of personal sort of like accolades directly from someone on high. So At least that's because if you look at the origin of like the Crowley as it sprawls out, Scientology is just like one of those little nuggets. We went into that too,
Right.
like
So that's
car and like the whole thing.
So Jack Parsons, his kind of disjoint with L. Ron Hubbard, to say disjoint to say the least, the Marjorie Cameron connection and all that. I can see that. Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely, it's interesting. Like Anton LaVey kind of made this occult aesthetic that you're supposed to be scary and Munsters and Addams Family, and then Scientology is more right. I mean, it is. It's like we can be a vegetarian, but you have to dress in a goth kind of suit, and it has to be like 50s, like, and it has to remind you of like Elvira and all this stuff. But you know, if you have Scientology instead, look nice, kind of similar in the sense that you could be a vegetarian or you can take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself to be sober. You have to follow the laws and everything. But, you know, you tuck in your shirt and you look like a banker. You probably are a banker. You could easily be a banker and a Scientologist. And I think that's interesting because he's saying, hey, look, in the reset, it's not going to be this black and white evil thing. It's going to be, you know, the new age. And so it is probably a more, I think he thinks he understands Crowley pretty well. I don't know.
You know what's funny is that there's a quote in a Vanity Fair article about Kubrick where he says he speaks to his respect for what is his name, Michael Herr interview, where he speaks to his respect for William S. Burroughs, and that's an odd that I'm like I know he had a whole Beat connection. Like you'll see the who's the Lenny Bruce poster in is it The Killing or one of his earlier films? Like I can't remember if it was Fear and Desires. I mean, what was it? What was the one? You know, right? Probably you're a Kubrick guy. What's the anyway? Where he says a paranoid schizophrenic is somebody who's begun to realize what's going on. It's some quote along those lines. And so, but William S. Burroughs actually, you know, he beyond his like cut up method and all these kind of things that he did, he had one book that was like the closest attempt that I've ever seen from him to not just write something just completely out there in that Naked Lunch classic style. It's called Ollie's Smile, and it's a warning about Scientology and like his kind of fears of the direction Scientology was taking and where it's all headed and all this stuff. I really recommend it. It's very short. It's a short read. It's more of an essay really than a book. But yeah.
I'm making a note for this one. And since you're on the note of William S. Burroughs, things to look up, the Thanksgiving's Day prayer for anyone that hasn't seen it before. It is like my favorite video to share on the holidays.
It's very cynical. Yeah. The roll up your sleeve thing and how he connects that with Native Americans.
Is it William Burroughs or who's Thanksgiving Day prayer?
It's William S. Burroughs' prayer for Thanksgiving, and it's very cynical. I like it.
I have not seen it.
You've never seen this before?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm gonna bookmark
I don't think you get in trouble for copyright with that one. I think you can totally probably play that, but
I don't know.
It's owned by Def Jam, actually. Def Jam has purchased the rights, and they are very aggressive with takedowns.
Are you serious? That's true?
Yeah, every Thanksgiving they take it down from me. Every single Thanksgiving I get.
What is Rick Rubin's deal, and is he still associated with Def Jam? I know he doesn't run it anymore, but like, is he kind of involved with making sure that they own stuff? Because it seems like he's added a legal element to stuff, or am I crazy? I don't know. That's all speculation.
I mean, I think he's a little bit of a kingmaker, just like he always was. But now he's like the true kingmaker, right? He's like the top hierophant.
Yeah, that's really real. That's pretty real. I mean,
I don't care how long somebody's beard is. That's not cause for me. No offense to you, paranoid American, but I
want to point out too, there was another great quote that was very similar to that one that we mentioned with William S. Burroughs, and it's a Charles Manson quote, and it's something like "Total paranoia is total consciousness."
Yeah, and so that quote, along with a number of other things, is reason why I feel that the fucking Ozzy Osbourne album, what is it, Black Sabbath album, Paranoid, is actually like that whole album to me is about Helter Skelter, like the war pigs, and you're like, war was carved on the chest, pigs was written in blood.
That was
like,
Iron Man too, wasn't it?
Yeah, that whole album to me feels like a concept album about Helter Skelter, and it's for that reason that I've wanted to play it with the the Manson movie that was like the made for TV movie called Helter Skelter. But I got the 119-minute version on VHS because you can only find like the 3-hour
Of course
full
you do.
version on television. I wanted to play the Downward Spiral with that movie for years, and I've just been waiting to digitize it first because I don't want to mess with my VHS that I had to order special, you know.
I need to start putting together a little wish list for stuff that I'm sure you've been able to ferret out that I haven't been able to yet.
Dude, there's some weird stuff out there, I'll tell you. And yeah, there's like one copy of this or 10,000 copies of that. And there's like a guy in Italy who has like the same cartoon that you, for whatever reason, got at your local video store. You know, it's weird. There's like very specific places around the world that saw certain things. And then they disappear. Like, so for instance, the Three Caballeros, right? And when that first came out, it was only in iTunes Philippines. So for like 6 or 7 years, right? Or 5 or 6 years until Disney Plus put it on Disney Plus, which now there's no Disney Channel as of this month. Did you hear that also? That the Disney Channel's banned? Yeah, Disney Channel is done. TV's done. If there's no Disney Channel, I think that kind of spells it out. Like they're moving fully onto the Web 3.0. Which
you know, the Three Caballeros were actually in one of the main attractions in Epcot for the longest time.
Still is there? Is it gone now? Isn't it still?
I haven't been in at least 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I think
it feels a little dated to still be there, but
it's awesome though. Yeah, so it's the water ride style, and I love water rides. Like you're in the water boat.
Oh, I did see that Splash Mountain was going to get taken down.
No, they're gonna redo it to be less racist and be about
but there's like a vote of like to get rid of it altogether or to whatever. I don't know. It breaks
weird, down a lot, and people get out of those stupid little logs and they end up like, you know, destroying their feet because they step on like gears and things that you're not supposed to step on. So yeah, that's had problems for a while.
Like one of my favorite things to do. So I used to go to Disneyland like every day, and I would just, because I had the passport thing, and I would spend like the last hour going on Splash Mountain over, maybe 2 hours, just over and over and over and over again. Because you can, you know, especially if you're one person, you can move to the front all the time, and it was just. Come on, there's nothing greater than Splash Mountain. Well, it's the craziest ride at Disneyland.
It's Songs of the South it's Brer Rabbit is the basis for that, right? So, and then you have Space Mountain, which is obviously the 2001: A Space Odyssey ride. Like, and isn't there like Monsanto? Didn't they fund Tomorrowland? Like, or, I guess that's not the operative.
I mean, originally, yeah. Yeah,
originally
it goes through a bunch of them. Like they basically just hoard themselves out to whatever corporations. Almost like a football stadium, you know. Like every 4 to 6 years, a new contract comes up. So
like the Chevron or Chevy did for a while the car ride thing, you know. And they always have like somebody who sponsors. Like the AT&T is at the House of Tomorrow, like video phone. Or
Siemens took over that for a little while too.
Yeah. I mean, and TiVo. I remember I won a TiVo character at the like. So they have all these sponsorships, but that was the plan for Epcot originally. Is that you'd live in a city where you wouldn't even own your electronics because they were testing them on you before the rest of America got them.
Well, and they'd kick you out if you ever become unemployed or had any like a disability that prevented you from being a productive member of society. You basically just got the boot from Epcot, or that was the original concept, at least.
I got a friend who he worked underground in Disneyland, and he when he quit, he got hired immediately by Lockheed Martin for doing like security type stuff, and they had him designing some like, you know, scanner that was like an alternative type scanner for airports. And it was just like, I always thought that was interesting. Like you go from like surveillance at Disneyland to like, you know, military intelligence type stuff, you know.
Where's the so I remember seeing this. I was looking for airport webway people mover systems, and so Disney invented with WED Enterprises the webway people mover systems, and a lot of the current versions of automated guideway transit monorail maglev systems are still made by companies associated with Disney from WED.
Oh, interesting. There you go.
I was trying to find the original one though, the people mover. There still is one, I think, in like the Denver airport, or in not the Denver, like the George Bush or Kennedy airport. I think it's in Texas or something. I forget, but they have a few. And so these were created by companies that, they're associated with like Granite Construction and Lockheed Martin and, you know, your average, your usual players.
The architect that actually created the backlot of Walt Disney Orlando also made military installations. And it was kind of designed with a lot of that same thing in mind, because even when Walt originally, or the team originally started putting together the ideas for Orlando, they really wanted it to be built, similar to kind of the way that a military installation we built, where everything would be secured. People would be kind of like kept away from the back lots, and it wasn't just for security reasons. It was to just make sure that the normal people never got a peek behind the curtain in a way.
Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing ideology. And like, yeah, just the fact that the webway people movers just slow down. They don't really stop. There's no engines on them because the roads move themselves. Because of course the road should be the thing that moves the thing, right? Your car should just get onto a road. Everyone's going the same direction. Disney, man, thinking ahead.
There's something about that slow ride though, man. It's got like a very distinct characteristic to it.
I mean, just also principal of Disney School who jumped to his death at Disneyland was son of famous Disney musical director. These have been those who have been to Disneyland would know the theme park is very haunted. Even Walt Disney's ghost never left the establishment, says the voice of Ed, who's not here right now. But
how is it that the haunted house, it's we've discussed this before, its grand opening was August 9th, 1969, which is the day and year of the Tate Bianca murders.
I've heard so many cool rumors about that. Also that the haunted castle had like an original grimoire at one point. It wasn't just all props, because the guys that had put it together were like really like into, if you're into like this kind of stagecraft, you probably got a little kick for occultism. So apparently there was like a legit grimoire there. I mean, I had like, when I first started going there and met some of the guys that had worked on the original things there, when I heard about Pepper's Ghost and all the cool stuff that they like, Pepper's Ghost used to blow people's minds up until maybe very recently.
You say Pepper's Ghost?
Pepper's Ghost. Yeah, that's kind of like the technology where they just
used. I remember that.
Yeah.
We can't take pictures of it with the normal camera because it doesn't appear. And yeah, it's like
so is that like, so Devil's Pepper was in Rosemary's Baby was what she had around her neck, which is also a Tanis root. And so she ad-libbed that line where she goes, "Tanis, anyone?" when she's putting the necklace on. And so what was there? The Sergeant Pepper was originally supposedly called Dr. Pepper, but they didn't know that was like a drink in the US or whatever, so they made them change it. I always thought it was funny that Forrest Gump says, "I must have had me about 15 Dr. Peppers," when he says he has to pee to JFK, when he means JFK or whatever, and 15 is the devil. So I always like Devil's Pepper, 15 Dr. Peppers. I don't know.
Wow, that's pretty good. Forrest Gump, bro.
Wow. Yeah, and what is a Forrest Gump? Because in the movie Legend, there's a character that says he's a Gump, and he's in the forest. And I've tried to look up. I was like, is a Gump like an actual, like, did really Scotches make that up, or is that an actual thing from like folklore or somewhere? And like, I've never been able to find it other than
Legend. That kid's amazing. That kid totally convinces me he's 3,000 years old.
Hey, by the way, I kind of I'm obligated to say this, is that so there's Reggie Watts did like a live like soundtrack for Legend. So like they played Legend on a big old screen, and he made like this live soundtrack. I have it on the SYNCBook website. Actually, I just went ahead and uploaded another copy that I had found online. So somebody else had put it together, but it's
oh man, where do I go to find that? Also, I love Reggie Watts.
It's on my page. So you know how to get there. So, and it's towards the beginning. It's one of the top ones, I think. Keep going down. Oh, whoops! All the way to the bottom. You're at the bottom. Go to the top.
Oh, just a few down. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reggie Watts Legend. Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. That's crazy. See, there you go. People are always wondering about sync artists working, and it's the kind of thing where it's pretty obvious that a lot of people love to do this, and often they're not allowed to sell it or get it out there because they don't own the rights to the movie, but they have a creative fair use to make the art because they're inspired.
Right. It was like the Mystery Science Theater guys. Like for a while, they were just like making downloadable recordings, and you could like cut out the little guys and put them in the corner of your screen so you can act like you're like recreating the show, But I thought that was really creative. So they wanted to do like The Matrix and different movies that they were like, they couldn't put it out the same way. So they just did the dialogue themselves, and you download that and do it yourself, It's a do-it-yourself kit. I kind of like
the riff tracks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, but like, where'd that guy go? Oh yeah, there he is. So he died. And what are your guys' thoughts on the suicide at Disneyland of the son of the musical director? Any thoughts? I mean, because
I think this actually happens a lot more than you'd expect. Like people doing really macabre things on property just because they feel like it's got some extra energy, or it's like you can go out and be part of this bigger thing that's going to last a little bit longer. But Disney sweeps it all under the rug. There's a lot of people that have just normal or like heart attacks and kind of like mishaps. These more gruesome ones, it's harder to cover these ones up because you can't like whisk them away under a gurney, in like a sheet, the same way that you could, with like just kind of stumble someone out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because I always want to wonder if it's a sacrifice, but it sounds like he actually did. His life was falling apart. His wife was taking kids or something allegedly, and so it could be. Yeah, maybe it's just like we've seen people at Burning Man, who are like.
I saw people die at Burning Man. I've seen a couple people die at Burning Man. I saw my first year at Burning Man, I witnessed somebody run directly into the fire of the man. And the next year they had it so we couldn't get so close anymore. And it was like, I guess that was the last year that you could run. So it's like be like a stampede of people just running in a circle around the thing right after the man falls. And so I watched somebody fucking run in the fire, and I couldn't believe my eyes at first. It's like, did that really just happen? Did I really just see that? Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, dude hang himself, or like after they had been
it was behind our camp at Nexus, the same year. And I saw him, and I, like everybody else for the most part, thought I was looking at art. I thought I was looking at somebody had put a fake man up there, but the guy killed himself behind the Nexus camp in what was that, 2008, I think.
7 or 8. I've got the video for Burning Man 2008 or 9 that I'm going to put up again, but I had to go through some stuff to make sure it was all fair use. Well, that'll be up probably next week. Kirstie Alley tribute, though. This was the last thing she did. She dressed up as this giant pink elephant. Pink elephants on parade. Pink elephants. Disney and pink elephants. Elephants and mice. You can think of also the connection there, right? Let me see if I can get a better picture.
Yeah, what's the story with that little mouse with Ganesh, right? So
Ganesh rides on a mouse, right? Is that the bird? Hold on, or is he holding the beard?
No, well, there you go. But no, he's got an accompanying mouse that has specific symbolism. I can't remember entirely what that's all about.
Yeah, so pink elephant and his mouse, and usually I see him right. I wish Giant, shout out to Giant next time you can explain this better. The idea of this mouse that the elephant.
Oh, we had that guest who's from Santa Cruz.
Noel could probably.
Noel would go on for a while explaining to us all the.
Noel, I'm gonna count you in soon. Sabri too. I've got some Hare Krishna friends that could also answer this. But according to this, at least Ganesh Chaturthi is coming up, and it happens to be one of the most awaited celebrations. Where's the mouse thing? Hold on. Big belly and riding a mouse. Riding a mouse. It's actually demigod Kroncha. Okay. Mouse Kroncha. It's gonna take me back there. That's where they're gonna say it the most anyway. Okay. According to the story, assembly of Lord Indra, Kroncha accidentally stepped on the toes of Muni Vamadeva, and who was a learned saint. Muni Vamadeva thought that Kroncha had done so intentionally and grew enraged and cursed Kroncha to become a mouse. Terrified, Kroncha fell to his knees and pleaded for mercy. So this is kind of like Splinter or something in the Ninja Turtles. Right. Like he used to be somebody, but now he's a mouse. This subdued Muni Vamadeva's anger. He said that this curse could not go in vain, but that Kroncha would meet Lord Ganesha and become his vehicle. That way he would also become worthy of worship even by gods. And so it was. Kroncha was transformed into a mouse by the curse of the Vamadeva Muni and fell into hermitage of Maharshi Parashar. Okay. Also, no ordinary mouse. In fact, he was big as a mountain and frightening to all who beheld him. He caused a lot of hell, a lot of trouble. Isn't there, Mickey Mouse, giant cartoon? I remember this like when I watched Jungle to Jungle or something like that. There was like an evil. It's my strict safety on good. But there was this. Yeah, here it is. This is it. The evil Mickey, and he's this giant Godzilla Mickey. And Mickey Mouse is a weird character, right? If you think about it, they basically created the pantheon around the gods. And this is a clear metaphor here because Mickey can do no wrong. Mickey's not supposed to have an evil Mickey. Mickey's not even supposed to have a like Donald Duck exists to make the mistakes Mickey can't make, right? And Goofy even further, right? Mickey Mouse is just this like.
So it says mouse or rat. It's there. Mickey the Rat was another character.
Well,
who
also
people thought was Robert Crumb, but isn't actually Robert Crumb.
They were gonna do Morty. Didn't Walt Disney want to do Mortimer the mouse? Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, this is a new one to me. Mortimer the Mouse.
Yeah, so I heard that Mickey Mouse was Mortimer Mouse, and his wife on the train. This might be a Mortimer Mouse was originally to be Mickey Mouse was supposed to be named Mortimer, because Mickey Mouse, on the train ride, because he's got Oswald the Rabbit, right? Mm-hmm. Oswald the Rabbit is now. This is also something I kind of want to check into. Is that I remember in 2012 they said, "Oh, we bought the company that owned Oswald the Rabbit, so now we own Oswald the Rabbit," but that wasn't a trademark that had been renewed in 1974, and it's from 1928. So theoretically, Oswald the Rabbit's been in public domain since like 2018, right? So realistically, we can hang out with Oswald the Rabbit anytime. He can come on our show. I don't think he has an NDA. Like, he's free, right? So Oswald the Rabbit's an important character. But then they took it from him. That was the story. So he had to create a new character. And so Ub Iwerks is drawn, but he's a simple man, this Walt Disney. He's drawing circles on a page and he's thinking, you know what, a mouse, because he sees a mouse, and then Ub Iwerks does the real drawing. I don't know if this is true. This is some like Disney lore. You know how Disney lore is. It's more important that the story moves you than it's true. But the story is that his wife said, Mortimer wasn't a good name and that Mickey would be better. And then there's also the deal with Mickey, who slips the Mickey in the Chicago bar that Walt Disney used to hang out in.
Oh, right. So that was Tracy Twyman's trip. We've discussed it at length, but that in Rosemary's Baby, it's Minnie who brings the moose, which she calls a mouse, which is actually a Mickey that puts Rosemary under.
Wow. Interesting.
So yeah, you have Minnie at the door and go, "Here's the mouse." And it's a Mickey.
That the moose lodge thing, right?
Oh my God. Dude, well, no, it's so crazy that you got Mia Farrow not knowing if the baby that she's pregnant with in real life while she's doing a movie, Rosemary's Baby, and she doesn't know if it's Frank Sinatra's or Woody Allen's, and she's married to Frank Sinatra, and so Frank Sinatra filed for divorce the day and year that scene was shot of the impregnation, because you have that whole Catholic connection and the mob and all this shit, and he's like, I can't have any of that, so he's like, you do this, that's it, and he proved it. But yeah, so that's the idea that Tracy Twyman postulated, was that at the end of the movie, when they're like, it's eyes, that is synchronistically or whatever, that relates to blue eyes, that when the baby was born, they would know whose baby it was. So even if he wants to get divorced, now here's his baby. And then the way that connects with the movie makes it so meta, and all the other stuff too. Sammy Davis Jr.'s book on the shelf, given his connection to bringing it back to Anton LaVey.
Scott says Goofy's a cow. I don't think that's true.
This has been debated at length, and doesn't he have a girlfriend who's a cow? Is that why we think that? And she looks kind of like him?
I don't know.
Girlfriend seems a little bit extreme, though.
Is that a thing?
Oh,
did they?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Right.
And so she doesn't look the same. You can see by her nose that is the cow, and so yeah.
Yeah, the cow. All right. Yeah, I didn't really think about that, but
yeah,
no, I'm pretty sure
Goofy is a dog with a dog, Pluto. Yeah. So yeah,
that's Goofy and Pluto is like very interesting because one is a master and the other's not. So there's some kind of racism here that they're kind of showing you the difference in class that exists in our own society. That one's a master and one's a slave. I mean, but they're both dogs.
Yeah, I want to make a meme of that scene from Pulp Fiction where Mia Farrow is getting injected and put Garfield's face on her and then make it so it's Odie doing the injection and it says like OD'd.
That'd be cheaper than
something like that.
Because Frank Sinatra, Rosemary's Baby reminds me of Rama and Sita, right? Because she was chased, but then she was forced to do the trial by fire because he didn't believe her. But Mortimer Mouse, okay, Mickey Mouse, okay, but Mickey Mouse was supposed to be this innocent guy. He doesn't do any wrong. When you see him kind of mess up, when he gets angry, it's kind of frustrating.
Well, he's a Mason, right? Or he's a Demolay, so he has to abide by a certain sort of standard that none of the other characters have to abide by.
Yeah, every single time. And so then his main, what's his main lesson that he learns, right, is in Fantasia, because
thank you.
That is Walt Disney's lesson. That's when Walt
and
Disney
this is arguably where he comes from. That what is it? Yen Sid like actually creates from a regular mouse, and using this hat kind of like creates this in a dream, and then they all come from the dream, and then that dream becomes the Disney universe, what actually exists right now today.
Oh my God, far out.
Brittany, bring that over here. Hold on a second. So Brittany just came in and she brought some of my new clothes and garb. This is the signature. I don't know if you can even see how well you can see it. It's the signature banana plague cape.
What the fuck?
Right? Yeah.
I don't know. Look at that.
I don't even know how you're supposed to. Let me see if I can turn the screen because it's like legit. Hold on. Wait. I just want to put it on though so they can see how cool this is. Straight up, dude. This is my banana.
Oh, it's got a hood.
Like this before.
Oh, right.
I'll show you the design so you can understand what's going on here. It's cool though, because I was like, it's gonna look and feel as good. It feels and looks as good as I thought it would.
If we're showing off blankets here, hold on. I just got one in too.
Oh man, that looks epic. See, I'm working on something kind of in that vein. I love kind of the hypercard, like, yeah, it's beautiful. Oh, that looks so good.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the Mickey Mouse and the masonry. It's all there, man. With the aliens. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Doug just picked up your comic book. I have, as well. So now we're starting to get some more of the comics together and more of this merch, man. I'm sorry, I did get distracted there for a second.
Shiny new things, man. Everyone likes shiny new things.
See if I can pull up the page for a second. If you're looking for a banana, this is the look for you, right? And it's got an inside fleece too. And then there's one that's just a cape as well. All right. Sorry, got excited there. I mean, it's cool. So
psychedelics is at the center of so much of Disney, right? And so like there's apparently, so I've gotten this on good information. I don't, okay, how to talk about this stuff without, I have to be careful, I think. But there's watchdog groups, for lack of a better word, that work for Disneyland to remove associations of particularly LSD and Disneyland. So not just like Disney, but like basically people get like privileges at Disneyland if you have certain connections, and you'll basically have facilitated psychedelic journey at Disneyland where you get to go to the front of stuff, like you get
hell yeah, you do.
So basically, like
the California Adventure, and they put like I was like dancing and I was doing the hoedown, like put your left foot out, and it's like, and then they put, like this guy comes up behind me and I think he's gonna get me in trouble, and then he just puts a bunch of candy in the back of my hood. He's like, "You're good, bro. Just keep dancing."
Yeah.
Disney,
so there's like that Phantasma thing, I think is what it's called, where they're projecting on water and stuff like this. Like, so I have friends connected with my Burning Man thing that have gotten special treatment where they've basically been given substances from the higher ups at Disneyland provided and got to watch the show from a special booth up on top and just had like, the whole psychedelic meltdown experience fully like protected, so to speak. And so and when you look at that hat on Mickey during the Sorcerer's Apprentice segment of Fantasia, that is a mushroom cap. That is like all throughout Fantasia you have drug references. This was something that was encouraged. It's almost like Steve Jobs in Apple kind of encouraging for more creative production to get people to experience things like that because they like what came out of it. And so it makes sense that in the history of Disneyland with a bunch of animators, that psychedelics were heavily encouraged and played like a fundamental part of their whole, culture in that world. And so
But
Yeah.
it also makes sense if you look at Mickey Mouse, and so you got 100 years of Disney, and you got a lot of people growing up in Disney, and they grow up. They started out as kids, and they grow up for sure. But Disney itself, you know, they're seeing that a lot of people around the world. Okay, so World War II happens, Britain, Soviet Union. They're looking at Mickey Mouse as a sign of freedom. Donald Duck does the fighting. Mickey Mouse is usually doing the home front stuff, like collecting bacon drippings and stuff for glycerin for bombs and whatever the propaganda films. So Mickey Mouse becomes a symbol of what it's like to be American and free. And you see all the time people using the Mickey Mouse logo for their own kinds of pop art. And it's become this way because Mickey Mouse was, he's been part of our condition for so long. I mean, Mickey Mouse is no longer just property of Walt Disney, and they know it. And it's about to become official.
Well, there was an
There's
entire
Two-Gun
art
Mickey, too.
scene. Oh,
Two-Gun
Yeah.
Mickey. You can look him up. He's one of the few violent Mickeys.
so apparently this was some of the art that was, not all of it was destroyed, but a lot of it was destroyed by the
Two-Gun
Nazis. So there was like in Germany, right? There was like a flourishing art scene that is pretty much erased from history for the most part, and it included things like Mickey kind of satire art and stuff like that, from what I understand, or just American pop culture parodies and things.
Dude, the Japanese propaganda, Mickey Mouse. They have like pictures of Mickey Mouse like flying down from the sky on vampire bats and just shooting at all the Japanese kids. It was just terrifying. The original, yeah. I mean, there were some stuff, but like for the most part, Disney's put it out that Mickey Mouse is this altruistic, like you said, kind of a Rosicrucian, Demolay, spiritualist. He's into Fantasia. He pays his taxes. He lives in suburbia now after the war. Things have changed a bit. I mean, so Mickey Mouse is like, so Disney's done their best to put out like a positive vibe about Mickey Mouse, because right now you've got like the Winnie the Pooh horror film, and all the first things that they come out with are not, they're kind of terrifying, right? Like the new versions of these things. Are they going to do anything to make sure that Mickey Mouse, when Mickey Mouse enters public domain, because that's the next thing in 2024, who's going to make sure that Mickey Mouse is safe? This is sweet, by the way. I love this art. Are you kidding me? Gophers Inside Out. Yeah.
Have either of you ever seen Victory Through Air Power, which was the movie that Walt took a break from doing animation to start doing propaganda, and he had a whole bunch of them, but this was like the big one that he tried to also turn into kind of like a movie that they could, charge.
Yeah, Victory Through Air Power is amazing. I love my favorite's the corn propaganda one. Disney corn prop. It's like Maze or something like that, like Maze Through the Ages or something like that. Film, I don't know. They're like, what is the thing that built the hemisphere? The grain that built the hemisphere. That's it. And they just show this dude working corn. They're like,
I remember that. Yeah.
And they're like, this is what we have to protect. We have to protect this great inheritance that we have, which is genetically modified grain that is corn, created by the Aztecs.
And protect that we did.
Monsanto's connection to Disney.
We need to make sure their kids die because of all the kids that were sacrificed for the blood of the fertilizer to make this.
So
yeah.
Are you saying that? So the Tomorrowland thing goes all the way back to when this film was made? Is there? I don't know the timing of everything.
Tomorrowland and Disneyland opened in 1955, June 5th, 1955. I think.
Oh,
right?
I stand reflected. Okay, I'm not that I knew, but yeah.
If I type 1955, but so the thing with Disney, as far as I look at it, and Thomas, tell me if you think this makes sense, is that his life changed a lot from 100 people working for him, and from 3 to 30 people working for him to 100 people when he went, and that's just from Snow White, to like 1,000. And when he had 1,000 people working for him, and he's having nervous breakdowns and strikes and everything like that, his patriotism shifts in World War II. Because during World War II, he's like, I love America. Obviously, you fight for America. After World War II, he's like, dude, they won't let me release Flubber, right? The absent-minded professor.
I mean, he was also a little bit disillusioned because there's a few different rumors and stories that I tend to give some credit to, but that the FBI essentially was dangling this carrot over his head that they knew who his real dad was, because I guess Walt had this kind of like a daddy issue where he just refused to believe that the dad that he grew up with was his actual sort of like blood father.
Was he really a eugenics baby?
What does he call it? And what do they call his sequel? What was it called? Son of Flubber, right? So I don't know. Maybe
What-
that's too much, but I
But
think
the idea is that he thinks that it's so funny because it's like the most like predictable Disney story. He thinks that he's gotten like swept away by these like his evil dad, his evil stepfather, and that his real dad is like a Spanish prince
right.
that comes from Spain and comes from like these royal bloods. So it's like that princess story. He lived it. Like the
I see what you're saying.
FBI. They kind of
But,
like
like,
dangled this carrot.
but-
They found out that he was estranged from his dad, and they were like, "Hey, we found your real dad. He's in Spain. You're totally right. You've got royal blood. But if you want more information, we're going to need you to give us some insider, goods when you go to these animation conferences, when you talk to these creative types. We don't trust these creative types that So he kind of in exchange for giving them info.
Why don't you go to Disney? Why don't you go down to Argentina, Brazil, and South America during World War II and talk to all the animators and all of the people that you can and collect as much information while making the Three Caballeros? Why don't you go down to all these countries? And that's
that's a golden bough thing. Is the child who's basically been separated from his father? He doesn't know who his real father is, and then at some point in his life, he receives special instruction.
Well, he doesn't believe it's his real father, and that's the other thing. Is so
doesn't matter. It's still. I'm just saying it's got that element to it. John Lennon's story has that too. That every time he met with his dad happened to be on April Fool's forever. It's like weird stuff.
But I'm trying to remember the secret society that Walt Disney was in. Do you guys remember?
It was a Rosicrucian form, and it was he had like another sect of Freemasonry that he belonged to that wasn't the standard. I forget what it was called.
Not De Malay though, because there was the Bohemian Grove had existed around this time on the West Coast, and it kind of included people like him. But he looked at Bohemian Grove kind of like Nixon did. It was a bunch of like silly guys running around naked in the woods. So they made a separate kind of rival group to Bohemian Grove that was supposed to be like the serious one, and they were going to be like these rough riders that were going to go out and like actually camp and actually hunt and not just get drunk and frolic in the. Have you ever heard about this?
No, I want to know about this. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm trying to look up the name of a secret society group. Let me see.
I know. So like he made that movie about Bohemian Grove called The Gnome Mobile, which is shot in the Redwoods, and it's all about these kids who wander into like the secret encampment, which is protected by fairy treaties, and like this secret society of old men are the only ones who know about it. Very strange movie. I've been hoping that eventually, David, you'll find a sync for it, because I bet you there's.
I was already working on Ewoks: The Battle for Endor, so this is a good segue.
Yeah. I'm afraid this thing's gonna be like Cord Meyer or something, so I'm not sure. But this movie's nuts for sure. And but just also, his Gnostic Rosicrucianism that comes out obviously in Donald Duck in terms of it being Thoth and all of the different characters.
Sure,
but it's interesting the mouse, because you have the rabbit associated with the Chinese mysticism, and then you've got the rabbit in Egyptian along with the mouse and the rat associated with plagues. So this idea of these plagues, he's using plague magic, which is very Crowleyan, and maybe it's not what we think. Maybe it's something different, like that. He's thinking, oh, this isn't a plague, this isn't evil. There's another reason for it, because he's made them beautiful and cute characters, right? But I mean, I have seen like My Little Pony Chaos Magic, right? Have you seen that? Yeah, there's some people that make some pretty scary, pretty cute chaos going on there. You know what I mean? It's all in that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I like how we got here. I like how we went from Kirstie Alley dressed as Ganesh to like the rat to like Mickey Mouse to like and Scientology, Anton LaVey. It's all yeah.
I mean, they stick, and also just public consciousness. Like, what's our right to like have? What do we own, and like what is like a symbol that's in our mind? That's owned by
so what I want to know is what are the connections between Rosicrucianism. Not Rosicrucianism so much, but Scientology, the Raelian cult, and Zionism.
That's gonna be fun. Okay, all right.
Well, the Raelians, actually, their symbol, ironically, which is getting all sorts of misaligned press this week, but it just represents, was it like infinite energy and infinite time?
They can say whatever they want to say.
Okay,
the thing means. I mean, it's like so. This is the thing. So I saw the symbol that Ye shared, and
Oh, this is the
immediately
social club?
I'm like, dude, I used that in a collage years ago and went down this whole rabbit hole on that group because it's the world's biggest UFO cult, and they seem to relate, like, in terms of their cosmology, it feels kind of relatable to Scientology in a way. Maybe more as like Zecharia Sitchin, who did work at the UN, and I don't know as a disinformationist, was he working for the Catholic Church? I don't know. We can speculate on that. But
the Lucius Trust room doing his mantras.
Right, but if you want your mind blown a little bit here, and I can't believe I'm not seeing this anywhere on the internet, just looking up Raelian and Africa. So they have a program that they're setting to back, which is, I don't know the best way to put all of this, but basically you're seeing an excerpt from an article there about the birthright and how African birthright, like basically setting up another form of what we see in Israel in Africa, is connected to the Raelian movement. And so they say themselves, so just like
they were fighting against gentlemen, in West Africa.
Right. So what the Guardian is arguing here is that there's ulterior motives to this. It's not all what it appears of what their intentions are. But as far as I can tell, the rabbit hole that I went down, which I need to go further down, but what I walked away with is that there's certain bullet points that I can't deny, because this is from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So
of course,
cloning,
the fact that they're associated with cloning, and that cloning requires in vitro fertilization so that you have a natural birth, so that you're endowed with human rights. If you're born from a natural birth as a clone, then you still have state rights from your citizenship and from the human rights of the UN. So they need humans. They need to pay women in cheaper countries to have the clones to naturally birth them, right? And so that's a big thing that they've done in the Caribbean, and as a French state religion originally, going to the African control, or the French controlled the French speaking African states, like in West Africa, as well as the Caribbean in general.
Right. So just to be clear, my assessment from everything that I've seen is that Elon Musk is a realist. Like, that's his religion. And the reason why Kanye got removed wasn't because he shared an offensive symbol per se. It was that he was basically shedding light on what Elon's belief system actually entails. And so when Elon says, I'm an alien trying to get back home, my read on that is that he means that completely literally in his belief system, and that ties to birthright. And so, his Africa connection, I think his sights are set on is more connected with kind of a type of apartheid ethno state situation in Africa. And so, it might seem like I'm over here jumping to conclusions, but you look at the organization itself and what it has to say. And so, here we have honorary guide titled Elon Musk being given.
Yeah, Rael gave him a title of the spiritual leader of the Raelian movement. Rael said that he's decided to award the title of honorary guide to the humanity to Elon Musk. I mean, what?
He also says that he's a free speech absolutionist.
Which can
happen to them as well. Did this happen right after Kanye? No, this happened way before, in May of this year. It's not way before, but like this year, in May.
It looks as though we're looking at an Isaac Hayes situation, where somebody doesn't mind ripping on fucking anybody and everybody. Like when Isaac Hayes was on South Park playing Chef, he's like, everybody's a target, no big deal. Then they go after Scientology, and he's like, okay, guys, I think we're going a little bit too far here. And then that ended with him meeting his end. And there's aspects to that story that holy shit.
A wild tangent related to that, but when they came back and they like forced him to do like the voice by cutting it up and doing like the most joke. One of that was called this like Explorers Club, and it was like this big joke about these old. But if you look up the actual Explorers Club, I don't know if you've ever seen it before.
Oh yeah,
it's absolutely mind blowing. Where it was like from the 1900s or 1920s or something.
Yeah. They're the Super Adventure Club, and they're distinct from the regular Adventure Club because when they go to far out places, they rape young children.
Yeah, yeah. But honestly, the real one, I mean, I would be not hard to convince me that this was
I mean, no,
actually
this
what
is the
these
Explorers
dudes were
Club
doing.
is super intense and real. That's the point. It's way gnarly. They're like, you know what? If we're gonna get in trouble for something, let's actually get in trouble for something. Who cares about Scientology? Let's talk about the Explorers Club. Look at their flag. Look what this is their flag, and they would
Wait a
take
minute. Was Isaac Hayes actually involved in this? Or
No,
is it
no,
No,
just-
I don't
we were
think
just
so.
making. They were making a comparison, huh?
they were
Yeah,
like,
they
look,
were
if we
making
were
fun
gonna.
of like the funny version of this.
And the thing is, like, it's way. They're like, hey, if we're gonna talk about something really nuts, like, let's talk about like the Explorer Club and these elite British dudes who were members of it. And I think it still exists, right? I don't think it's over yet. Right?
No, it still does exist, and they give a lot of honorary sort of titles to people that weren't like necessarily in the club. But when it first started, they legitimately had like 8 to 10 of the world's firsts.
Right.
Yeah, right here,
First,
yeah, all
first
their
to the
famous
North
firsts.
Pole, first to the South Pole, first to the summit of Mount Everest, first to the deepest point of the ocean, first to the surface of the moon, first to the both poles space and the deepest ocean. I mean, you know, these
Wow.
guys. Yeah. So, and then this is what their building looks like. So South Park wasn't kidding. I think that's the
Yeah.
funny part, really. A lot of time people don't get like the part that seems so weird, they don't laugh at. They're like, oh, this is so weird. What is South Park even saying right now? Well, that's because that's literally true. That's just reality that we live in. Yeah.
And this is also like the office from the guy in Ace Ventura: Nature Calls.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not saying that the Explorer Clubs are aliens, but you look at that, like, I mean, you know, I'm just saying,
Right.
like, get deep in on that brick print. Where'd it go? I
Right.
lost it. Here you are. Okay, before we get canceled. But I do
Right.
think that
Hey, that's the logo for Chase Bank, so don't worry.
yeah, that's true.
Well, and also, you ever seen the Bank of America, which was like the Freemason degrees?
Thank you so much because nobody ever wants to talk about it. But this
Oh,
is
totally.
definitely,
You're standing in the square. Look at that. There's the two footprints right there.
Well,
yeah.
not
in
just
the
that, but
corner.
you stand in the Blue Lodge, or you start in the Blue Lodge, and
Oh,
then it
I
rotates
didn't even
around. You
make.
get into the Red Lodge.
And then
didn't make that
this is the
connection.
way you see it a lot of time now is white, which is like a flag of surrender, which is ironic because
The
you know Bank of
chevron, too.
America started out as the Bank of Italy, and so Bank of America, Bank of Italy during World War II had to change their name because it was like obviously fascist.
Columbia also, the Columbia, the clothing line, that's Lady Liberty with a swastika is their logo. It's amazing that they're able to do that.
Yeah,
But,
I'm
you know,
surprised.
their
that
symbol, yeah. If you zoom in on the symbol somewhere, get it. Yeah,
Here we
there
go. Yeah, it's like the Apple equivalent to the Swazi. You know what I mean? It's very, I don't know. But so Raelianism, though, and okay, also this is the secret society, the Rancheros.
You know what? This Wikipedia page makes it look so boring, but really, like, there's this fascinating history again where these dudes thought that they were like the richer, more distinguished version of the Bohemian Grove.
I bet they were.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, they try to play it up, you know. There you go.
Novo Riche in California. You know what I mean?
Well, I was gonna say, is that Spawn Ranch?
But we're still talking about, you know, like rich guys that have, you know, very soft hands. So even their version of more rugged the Bohemian Grove only went so far.
Yeah, they didn't want to. I mean, you know, who wants to be rugged when you can have like silk bedding at your camp? And that is kind of the joke with the what's the name of the camp? So at Bohemian Grove camps, there's like each one of them has a different name and a different club.
I've got something that might blow your mind. I got a poster from Bohemian Grove. It looks very similar to this one, but it was from like the 50s, and I did a high-res scan, and I've got like a close-up view of like every single camp, very similar to what you've got here.
See, nice. Yeah, I'd love to see it. I mean, so here the Hillbillies, I believe, I can't remember for sure, but I think the Hillbillies is Bush family was in the Hillbilly camp.
The oil, that's the oil barons of the
Where's Podesta's Pizza Palace? Isn't that somewhere on there?
The food is up towards the right up there. Up here somewhere is where
and then the absolute pinnacle of Bohemian Grove would be Camp Mandalay, and I'm not sure where it is on this map, but Camp Mandalay is like if you're at Camp Mandalay, as you walk by the Hillbillies and you see these ex-presidents, you're just like, you plebeians.
Is that what is the deal with Lars von Trier's Mandalay? I don't know I don't think I've ever seen that one. I saw the Dogville one that was filmed the same way, but
just gonna open that up. Yeah, so the thing is, like, they act on television. So Bush family, you know, even though George Bush was born in Connecticut, trying to play up the Texas thing and everything is sometimes connected with the fact that in the plays they have to play up that they're hillbillies, right? So there is a weird kind of tie in to Bohemian Grove in our pop culture and how people behave in media.
Sure.
even though they're from Connecticut. But yeah, secret society. We're gonna go into. Let's see here.
Yeah, no, I don't
wanted
know, man.
the Raelian
Can I?
thing more. Because the thing that I wanted to
Yeah,
say about the Raelian first is just that he's put so many things up about aliens built the pyramids, ha ha ha. And the Egyptian government's like, no, we'll let you see. He's like, sure, Egyptian government. And so I don't know. I get the idea that he
yeah.
does believe in aliens.
Here goes. Look at the thread, and look at
I'm an alien trying to get back home.
the excerpt at least. Scroll down a little bit. There it is. That administrative nature is easy to overcome. Rael went on to compare the current situation with one that existed right when the nation of Israel was first created. He pointed out that the Israeli government immediately established the right to return, whereby any Jew, no matter where he or she lived at the time, could immediately receive an Israeli passport and the right to live in Israel. The same right of return should be this is a quote from the head of the Raelian organization, by the way. So the same right to return should be instituted by the West African states from which most ancestors of African Americans came, as well as ancestors of those now living in the Caribbean islands in South America, Rael explained. Wow. African states cannot afford to slow the return of those with African ancestry for administrative reasons. The return with their wealth and knowledge is real mana, and it also renders justice for the enslaved ancestors. So then when you look at Ye and a lot of the statements that he's made around slavery and all these kind of things, and he's coming up against somebody who's basically going to be, who's connected to this kind of like this, through your blood, you can have a divine right to move to some place that they're going to set something up. So the important thing to remember is that like the apartheid in Africa started in 1948. 1949, Israel becomes a nation. The model used by Zionism that was used by the Israeli government, what became the Israeli government, is ultimately tied to what happened in Africa. And so when you look back at when the discussions happened for where they were going to set up their ethno-state, one of the original proposals was Africa, along with several other places. But this technique, the formula behind the technique, we see happening in different parts of the world, and that connects with Zelensky, because Zelensky has a whole history of a relationship to the territories in Palestine and the expansion of the state of Israel. When I see this conversation happening where people are saying Jews and Nazis and all this stuff, I'm like, that's the wrong conversation. That feels to me to be a total distraction, because what we should be talking about, if we're going to be talking about this, is how, first of all, the obvious things, how Zionism is distinct. The ideology of Zionism is distinct from the religion of Judaism. And so my
trail of Bohemian Grove.
Wow. It looks like a kid's map. It's like a field trip. It looks like a field trip.
Yeah, well, every year they put out a brand new map. They put out a brand new everything. It's like they have a whole like marketing blast to like entice people to actually show up.
Yep, like, going way back to the beginning.
Find the lost kids over here in this camp.
Right. We looked a bit at Kirstie Alley as well, wearing the pink Ganesh outfit and on your Synchronous page.
Oh yeah. What do you guys think about that? I don't know what to make of it, but I think it's.
I mean, there's still some stuff there, like we were talking about Inner Space and Bill Paxton and like Sacrifices, and now it's about
and Inner Space is linked to the Epcot as well.
Right? Oh really? How so?
Yeah. Well, they had a like inside the human body ride that was very much influenced by that Inner Space movie, or maybe vice versa.
And Disney has a Fantastic Voyage movie where they go inside the body, which is like I think what it's based on. Inner Space is kind of based on the Disney movie.
Speaking of movies about going inside the body and movies that I really cannot find for the life of me, there's the Roger Waters album with, I forget the name of the guy he did it with, called Sounds of the Body. It's all as good as anything Pink Floyd ever did. It's fucking phenomenal. But it's for a documentary about the human body, and I've never been able to find it. All of these things, man.
You know what, David? I just over Thanksgiving I was watching Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with my kids for the first time, and then did you see my post about it? When the dad almost swallowed the kids in the whatever, what was that? Not Fruit Loops he was eating in the milk, right? In the spoonful of Fruit Loops, right? and then you just see it's the ring of Saturn, right? And here goes the daddy ready to swallow the kids. And I'm
Oh
like,
God, yeah.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
yeah.
How far down do I go?
Oh, it's much further down, but you can look at us. You can search. Well, I mean, if you go to the group, you can search it quicker. But actually, there's some good stuff, man. I'm telling you, this whole week just been crazy. See, like
Solar
when the
storm being
prince,
going on right now, clearly.
yeah, they came here for an Earth shot, and there's the kill shot from the sun. So it's crazy.
Sorry, I'm moving so fast. I was just trying to get to that particular one, but I guess we could just scroll through. The meltdown's good. But there was, before we go too far past Kirstie Alley, I wanted, because there's some stuff there. Toothless was that movie she did where she has to play like a fairy to redeem herself for Disney. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff with Disney and Kirstie Alley all the way through and through. Her kissing Mickey Mouse at the premiere of whatever.
She did not look that bad back in. I have to say, she was not bad.
I gotta wonder about Kirstie Alley though. I mean, and what's been going on with Disney. Okay, so going back though,
we're not going to Scientology, are we?
We already did some Scientology, but if you have any thoughts on it, definitely bring it up. I wasn't sure. I think she left it so long ago that she left it pre-Miscavige, basically. As soon as Miscavige got in.
No, she never left. She stayed with. She contributed somewhere like $5 million altogether, a lifetime. But but because she's still fighting tooth and nail with what's her name, Leah, the defector. What's her name?
Oh, okay. So she was still in the group. You're saying she's old school, so she's grandfathered into like the classics.
Yeah.
All right. That makes sense.
Eddie, do you have any thoughts on how Scientology might connect to Raelianism?
Well, I mean, are we going to go way back to L. Ron Hubbard and his own? I mean, we can go all the way back to L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, and their collaborations and their alien myths and theosophy. Well, he was. L. Ron Hubbard wasn't pretty much exposed to that crowd, wasn't he? The Los Feliz crowds.
I you know what? This is the thing is that I'm like, this is a huge organization, the Raelian organization, and I'm wondering. I want to know more about it. I'm like, I'm trying to look up what I can, but it's very strange, but it feels very resonant to the Scientology.
I typed in L. Ron Hubbard and cloning, and this is what came up: was an interview with Rael, where he ends the article saying, the master, you mean the extraterrestrial? He's like, no, I mean L. Ron Hubbard.
There you go. See, like that kind of shit. That's what I'm saying. Like there seems to be like there's something here, man. Like, I mean, this is the weird thing is when you get into the secret societies, they're distinct, but they're not separate. And there's so much crossover. And it's not just a matter of memory. It's just like their trips all seem to like relate through this kind of larger tapestry,
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at the symbol itself. Raelianism really very much copy a lot of material from the Theosophical, the Blavinsky, and that crowd.
Right, but there's like there's co-option, or whatever you want to call it. There's this is the thing with Zionism, was we're talking about an ideology that's co-opted a religion. And so when I'm looking at the Raelian thing, I'm like, dude, this is co-opting the Old Testament. Like they're using the Old Testament, the interpretation of it, to make this whole larger argument about our past and our future. And like, I don't know, man.
We're just talking about syncretism, basically.
Yeah. I mean, here's another thing: is that you guys saw Strange Angel, right? I mean, the series,
what a great show, man.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's a great show. But you saw how it ended, right? It ended right when L. Ron Hubbard. That was the very last episode when L. Ron Hubbard knocked on the door, and what's her name? Northrop. The Sarah the Sarah is the older sister, right? So you open the door. There was like orgy. There was body litter all over the stairway, and then and then he opened the door. He's like, "Oh, hi." Basically, he saw the newspaper. They're looking for somebody like L. Ron Hubbard to participate in the rituals. So and that was it.
Yeah,
that was it. Yeah. Very end, and then the whole season got canceled. And right after that was aired, they immediately canceled the next season, the third season. So I mean, I'm just trying to say how this is all seemed like very deliberate, because of course you see the episode where Jack Parsons he was channeling through the what's her name, the priestess from the Golden Dawn, and then she was doing the sex magic thing, and then he manifested his vision right on the moon where there's a Nazi flag on the moon,
Right.
You know, and there's a rocket. His rocket was on the moon, but it's basically used by the Nazis. So it's just crazy. You know, I think everything is all crossed together. Like, you know, I would say why the swastika and, you know, and you know, this I'm trying to get my thoughts together, but you know, it just everything's connected. Everything really is connected. If you watch the series, it's like, whoa, it builds up to that point where, of course, you know, all of Jack Parsons' sponsors from Caltech, they're all Jews, right? What's his name?
Well,
The guy
so the rail guy here is saying, like, you know, it's going to be not like the Nazi business. You know, they're going to work on in eugenics, modern genetic eugenics, to help us improve the human race as a whole, irrespective of race, ethnicity, or religion. Not like Nazi business.
Yeah, we
So
heard
I
that
think,
before.
but so I mean, they are making the point that they're not singling out. Like, and so Kanye did go and single out like a people, you know, which you're
Right.
close to doing yourself. You gotta be careful. And you know, that's the thing. It's a group of people that are held together by an ideology, not by blood. And especially now when you can use science to adapt people however you want. And this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to make a complete new Gattaca, right?
Right, but if they're formulating an ethno state, then that is an exclusionary state that has everything to do with blood. See, this is the problem: is that the Jewish people got accused of relating to something in a very particular way in the 1940s, right? So they were like, "You guys keep it in your family, so to speak," because they say because of purity of blood. Well, that idea of purity of blood, that has no relationship to Judaism. But the insane thing is that now with Zionism, we kind of do. For all intents and purposes, that accusation has kind of like become manifest. And so you'll find a huge discrepancy between, you know, among Jewish people who, you know, if you don't align with the ideology that is connected to the state of Israel, they call that anti-Semitic. I mean, I feel like this is the most obvious thing. I mean, we know this, right? Like, do I need to say this? But at the same time, I'm looking at like no one's qualified their terms when these interviews are happening. And it's just like, that's extremely problematic. Like, what are we even talking about? You know what I mean?
Well, and if you really want to see where the whole kind of fever started from, there's a organization called the American Breeders Society, which started in 1903, I think. And if you wanted to be able, it's not that Breeder Society. It's American Breeders Association. Yeah, there you go. And if you want to like be able to point a finger to where like someone lit a match, you know what I mean? This one is a pretty serious match, and a lot of things just kind of like blossomed out of this American Breeders Association, and a lot of this actually was related to schizophrenia research. Because
there you go.
Hey, you what? Since you mentioned schizophrenia, I just made a post about adrenochrome, right? And, well, you know, I'm not trying to get anybody canceled here, but it basically was, you know,
Where do I go? Synchronous or what?
Yeah, it's in there. But basically, they said that part of the I just keep scrolling. But basically, one of the effects of adrenochrome is schizophrenia.
Oh, dude, we can go super deep on this shit right here.
Oh yeah, okay.
So the reason why adrenochrome even became somewhat interesting to any scientist anywhere is because World War II, they were sending soldiers out and they gave them epinephrine, or they were giving them like these adrenaline shots. And they noticed that if the adrenaline shots sat around too long, it turned pink, and they started calling it pink adrenaline. And then the people that were using the pink adrenaline were saying that as they were coming down, this isn't like 53 or 54, these reports were like made broad, but they were saying as they were coming down, they would start hallucinating. And there was a recognition that chemically adrenochrome was very similar to adrenaline, and obviously because it's a byproduct, but adrenaline had just been crystallized in like 1901 or something, and was the number one sort of like most powerful product drug that you could kind of get as soon as it came out. And it was so chemically similar to amphetamine, mescaline, LSD. So that alone is what actually made adrenochrome bust out onto the map, was how chemically similar it was to the mescaline. And they thought that essentially adrenochrome was kind of like a mescaline that just stayed in your blood, and that's what was made you crazy. And then if you took a crazy person's blood and then injected into yourself, then you could almost be like taking a hit of mescaline. It didn't quite work that way, but that was the original concept.
So
There's a
yeah.
quote right there, right? It says, "Gonzo, that's about right. That stuff makes pure mescaline seem like ginger beer. You go completely crazy if you take too much."
So in it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to explain this post. So I posted it because if you scroll down, okay, so we know this is from Fear and Loathing from Las Vegas, right? Well, that little quote is basically explaining the effect and how it triggers hallucinations and auditory effects, and also schizophrenia, where you can tell you can communicate telepathic when it's a telegraphic. So this is what I was trying to think, because now going down thinking with Johnny Depp later.
She totally drank his adrenochrome, allegedly.
Everything I post in the comments section here is alleged. Okay, all I know is that Elon Musk was actually at Johnny Depp's place. He was having something going on with Amber Heard inside Johnny Depp's apartment.
They were together before, right? So Amber Heard and Elon Musk were in a relationship, no?
Yeah, well, what I'm trying to allude to is that they were conducting something going on. I think they were doing the Babylon working. Here's the Rocket Man here, just like Jack Parsons, right? And he wants to go to the moon, right? The Dogecoin go to the moon crap, right? So this guy basically like he's no magician, but he's an Uber nerd, right? But he knows Johnny Depp is the guy the go-to guy who can, Johnny Depp has the biggest connection.
Kind of an magician, more of an illusioneer than an engineer.
Well, yeah. but I'm just thinking something happened. What they were doing with Amber Heard is what I see is the Scarlet Woman of the horror Babylon, where they were doing the Babylon. You know what it takes to do Babylon working, right?
Right.
Yeah, and very involved.
It's exactly like what John Dee and Edward Kelly was doing with John Dee's wife, right? I mean, John Dee ended up raising something that's not his kid, right? He doesn't have any kid. That's just Edward Kelly.
Did you know that Marlowe worked for John Dee?
Go ahead.
I didn't know this until recently.
Ooh.
My rabbi was just telling me this. So Marlowe, who wrote Faust, he worked for John Dee, and yet like what he wrote was kind of like it was subversive. It was kind of a satire. Like Marlowe didn't really ascribe to the same beliefs that John Dee did, yet he wrote freaking Faust. He's very extremely cynical. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's just I didn't know that until just recently that they had that literal relationship. Explains.
I've got a crazy adrenochrome tangent that maybe you guys can give me some more light on, because I hit a dead end. But I think I was onto something really interesting. So has anyone here seen the movie The Cell with Jennifer Lopez? And there's this scene, very specific scene, where this cow gets like sliced.
I knew you were going to say it.
Spread it across. Okay. So this is actually based on artwork by a guy named Damien Hirst. And Damien Hirst was fairly large on the scene in like the mid 90s, and even now, like you can find his work. A lot of celebrities kind of chalk up to him. Well, Damien Hirst's first major artwork that he ever sold was actually called Adrenochrome Semicarbazone.
It was a horse, wasn't it?
Well, no, he actually did. He did multiple animals. He did sheep, he did horse, he did cows.
Oh no, but in the movie, yeah, okay.
But if you look up Damien Hirst's work, his very first work was called Adrenochrome Semicarbazone, and it was part of this series of dot paintings. It wasn't these in particular. So that one on the top left, that's actually it. That's a shot of his adrenochrome painting. This is the first one that he sold that kind of like put him onto the art stage. But it's just interesting because in 1992, which I think is when this is from, adrenochrome outside of very small niche of people really kind of understood this, and it's mind-blowing that he also did this like cow separation sort of like aesthetic, and that made its way all the way into the Cell. But I couldn't not see this as this like sacred bull worship or sacred bull,
Sure.
sort of like, yeah.
Very like, alien abductee cow.
Yeah, yeah, I was about to go there. I'm like, there's no way that the aliens will abduct and mutilate. Cattle mutilation has
Cattle mutilation. There it is.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to figure out why are we drinking their milk and why we're eating so much cows and.
Well, I'm going to blow your mind a little bit too on this.
Sure.
Because what I mentioned before, I think adrenaline was first isolated by a Japanese scientist in 1901. Technically, it was his assistant, and they did it literally in a janitor's closet. But it was created from 20 pounds of bull adrenal glands, and that was where the very first large production of adrenaline came from. And I'm pretty sure tends to be where most adrenaline still comes from, is from the adrenal, bovine adrenal glands.
But what is it called in the secret ingredients in the original Thai beer bowl? It was from Thailand originally, right? It was drinking pure bull semen. That's what it was. That's what not guano. What's it called? Yeah. What's that?
It's probably fucking good for you.
Taurine or
taurine.
I kept on coming across these references to this special elixir that occultists were using, supposedly Albert Pike and stuff. And I was trying to find out what it was, and I came across something that was literally just describing human ejaculate, both from males and females. That basically, supposedly, I don't know how this worked because Albert Pike was a very large man, so I don't know how often he did it, but it was basically like saying, these occultists would fast only ingesting sex fluids, basically. And I'm like, and they're not their own sex fluids, so it's like.
I've got another really crazy one for you guys too. Sorry, go ahead.
All of this is connected to the spirit. No, I'm just trying to go through, spirit cooking. The whole memory of Abramovich. It's basically just insemination, out in the open. Imagine you're going to a party where there's all this blood, all this other menstrual blood, and all these.
Well, so your mind has to be associated with a physical, corporeal thing. So there's like blood, and then there's like life and death. There's a lot of different things like candle burning, but sex magic has with the alchemical process, transmutation. But Thomas,
magic is about.
What was the?
Go ahead. You guys were starting to talk about like some special little substance, and then like I came across something very recently, like this last week, and my mind is just nonstop blowing the more and more I look into it. So I'll cut right to the chase where the origin is. There was a book written in 1694 called A Voyage to the World of Cartesius, which is essentially a story about René Descartes. And in this book, this guy is basically describing that he had traveled all by himself and had been walking all over Europe. And as he went through France, he meets this old guy. And the old guy says that he kind of hung out with Descartes. And Descartes imparted on him some secret sort of knowledge that could, if it fell into the wrong hands of like the evil hands, it could just like ruin humanity. And what he said is that he had this little snuff box that was mixed with a little bit of tobacco, but it also had some other herb, and they don't mention what the herb was. But Descartes said that when he sniffed this herb, his soul would leave his pineal gland, and he could direct it to enter anyone else's pineal gland anywhere in the world, and he could latch into their pineal gland, capture all their knowledge, all of their life experiences, and then pull it back out and return back to his pineal gland. And this story that starts in 1694 is where that original book comes in. It then gets cited in a newspaper in 1713 called The Guardian, where they perpetuate this again. And this story about being able to snort a special drug and have your soul leave your pineal gland and jump around and come back in, this is like one that kind of like builds over time, and you see this like story sort of mutate into a million different versions of the same thing today.
Right, and the idea that they were using these to make cannibalism, but also that they were breaking down. So all these churches in Europe, we were just showing some pictures a second ago of like churches made of skeletons and bones. Like, what were they doing with all the skeletons and bones? There's a lot of stories about like the resonance of bones themselves, But even just the very idea of like the Smithsonian pointing out that they were drinking blood, taking baths in blood from, young virgins and things. If you were a royal, you would kill somebody and bathe in their blood.
Do you remember what George W. said when he was asked about drinking? I don't know if it was blood or they said drinking wine out of Geronimo's skull with skull and bones.
Oh,
What
yeah.
his
He was
response to that-
asked about it directly.
He was asked about it directly. I've seen it more than a couple times. He's asked about it, and he goes, "Yeah, we did. I think I'm getting this quote exactly right. Something along the lines of, yeah, we did a lot of strange things."
Well, boys in college, boys, am I right, fellas? Yeah. Boys just
That was the
being
last
boys.
time I actually casted my vote. Who was running again? What's his up?
I have no
What's that?
idea. Well, is he
My
get
God.
cut off?
God, what's his buddy? I mean, the Democrat, not the
John
buddy,
Kerry.
John Kerry. John Kerry was
Kerry,
in
yeah,
his
John-
own.
You voted for Kerry?
group,
What?
yeah.
No.
No,
John
There
Kerry?
was John Kerry and George W. were in Skull and Bones at the same time, the same
year,
fraternal year.
yeah.
So let
So
me just
basically what we can extrapolate from that, as a matter of fact, among other things, is that we know for a fact that George W. and John Kerry took turns, among others, laying in a coffin naked and confessing every sexual exploit that they can remember having.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
having said that, that's really not as embarrassing as it used to be, I guess. So it is what it is. But
You
what
don't know
I
what their
remember,
sexual exploits were,
what I
so
remember is, so I remember like right before this all happened, like about
Okay,
6 months,
and-
6 months before this, I was taken out of my bed by these two guys who used to be former baseball players, and I was carried off in the middle of the night, put in a plane, and taken to Idaho, where I was stripped, put into some weird outfit, and forced to walk around in the desert for like 77 days and learn how to make fire and eat nothing but lentils and catch mice, which I made a mouse into a hacky sack. And some kids died and they shut down the program. But when I got out of the program, and by the way, we didn't get the alpacas. I don't know what these lucky kids got, but it was pretty brutal. Then I get to the next program they're trying to set me up for, which is in Utah, and it's a freaking Provo, Utah Discovery Therapeutic Boarding School where they're going to mind control us and make us watch stop motion of flowers growing and wilting for 6 hours a day, and eventually they'll let us start wearing green shirts on Tuesdays so we can bag groceries for the local Mormons. And on the TV there is Bush next to Kerry, and I'm thinking to myself, wait, Bush and Kerry, like 322 Skull and Bones, because I'm 16, but I'm still Andreas. And I'm wondering, like, what the hell? Because I've been living in the desert, I've been living in the desert, and like there's no reality. I was living, and all of a sudden I'm back in Babylon, and I'm like, God, John Kerry. I don't know. So that's that was one of the moments I really like gave up on people. I was like,
that was the last time I cast my vote. Actually, I stopped voting for 10 years because I found out about these two guys. But
I voted for Ron Paul.
Do you remember the "Don't tase me, bro" meme that was popular for such a long time?
Oh yeah, I remember.
You remember that was the question he was asking that caused him to get tased. Was he was trying to ask John Kerry about being in the Skull and Bones?
Yeah.
No one remembers that part. They all remember just the funny guy getting tased.
Oh shit!
Oh my God!
Right? Yeah. Of course. It was like, what's the deal with you and the
Dude,
friends? And
tasers are fucking dangerous, dude. I've lost 2 friends to fucking police tasers.
Yeah, it can stop your heart, man. It can stop.
Yeah, no, two friends of mine died. I don't know if you ever met Aziz.
Yeah.
You knew Aziz?
Yeah. And Aziz
That guy was
died?
cool.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's the same one. He went to Aptos. He was really into just mushrooms and weed and didn't touch anything else. And somebody fucking smoked him out with weed that was laced with PCP in San Jose, and he fucking freaked out. And they suck attack dogs on him. So because he was pissed because he didn't want to be on PCP, but he was also on PCP, so it didn't look good. And they sicked an attack dog on him, and then they fucking tased him, and he died instantly. It's super fucked up.
Sucks.
I got pulled over like 2 years in the last 2 years, and this cop said, "You look nervous," and I was like, "I am," and he was like, "Well, you nervous around cops?" And I was like, "Yeah, a bit," and he was like, "Why? Why are you so nervous?" And I was like, "Well, 2 friends of mine have been tased to death by police," and then he left. It was actually kind of cooler.
He's like, all right. We always like to tag at least one. Just help you.
Hey, Thomas, I just want to go back to what you said about the snuff. Do you think that's actually Syrian root that they put in with acacia?
It's really hard to tell, man. The closest link that I've been able to trace it back to is a club called the Hashish Club that I think was
the Assassins.
Right. No, not so. Yeah, not the Old Man in the Mountain Assassins, but there's actually it's called the Hashish Club, but it was like HISCH, if it matters.
Well,
And
that's
and I
what,
think that they might have been the closest to figuring out what that snuff was. Like they were actually directly looking into what the snuff that Descartes and all these other guys in the Guardian kind of claimed to have been.
You know, in First Kings, when it's describing the temple incense, it gives a lot of ingredients. Some of those ingredients we know what they are. Many of them we don't, which is interesting in of itself. But one of those ingredients listed is acacia. The tabernacle was said to be built out of acacia in the first place, but Eastern acacia, from what I understand, you can derive dimethyltryptamine from that. And we're talking like when we talk about temple incense, we're not talking about a little thing of incense like we think of incense. We're talking about a fucking giant mound. They're hot boxing a temple to the max, and this is where they're getting prophecy. So you have, you know, it's a very directed ritual involving basically intense substances, including DMT.
You ever seen these guys? Like, I remember it was in Santiago, and they got like this big old thing full of incense that's just like literally on a rope, and they swing it like a bell, and it just swings back and forth through the whole church till it's filled with smoke. It's nuts.
But we're talking more than that. We're talking, you know, something.
3023 talks about cannabodin, and a lot of people think cannabodin is cannabis. So there's that.
So you look at Syrian Ryu, it's kind of like the ayahuasca vine. It's the alkaloid. It's the MAOI deactivator, right? It basically allows for the MDMT to trigger inside your body without being destroyed because of enzymes in your body. So I don't know the difference really between Syrian Ryu and but it has to be different, totally different effect, even though it's DMT introductory agent, you know. So what's the MAOI
monoamine oxidase inhibitor, inhibitor?
Yeah. So that's what the rules are.
Monoamine oxidase inhibitors. Yeah, tobacco is also an MAOI, which is another one that's used. And so sometimes people smoking get higher. I'm like, what happened to me? It's like, well, duh, bro. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm sure that the Native Americans put something else in the calumet.
Well, I mean, it is interesting though, because psychedelics were associated with acute schizophrenia. That was the idea, that you could have a brief period of schizophrenia, and so that these American breeders.
That's what shamans are. You know, shamans are supposed to be schizophrenic. Otherwise, they cannot channel, you know, out of the body. You know, that's
well, actually, you mentioned shamans, and this is where these guys actually started getting all their original ideas, is because they, as they were expanding, they noticed that some of the Native Americans were using peyote, and peyote used to be called like Indian whiskey. And that was actually how they prevented it from getting taken away from them for such a long time, is that they just kind of treated it like it was their whiskey. You know, like the white man had the whiskey and then they had this peyote, and these little samples of peyote made their way into, and we're going to tie this back into Scientology, because if there's one thing, there's probably a few things that Scientology is like very right about. One of those things is how freaking crazy the background of psychiatry is in general. And it really did, like all of psychiatry as we know it today is a combination of rich people being afraid of dementia and, you know, discovering this new mescaline drug. And when they put those two together, this essentially is what birthed modern day psychiatry in general. You mix in a little eugenics and then it just kind of spreads across the world.
Well, you know that William S. Burroughs book I was talking about earlier, Ollie's Smile.
Okay, so the Hashashins were literal Parisian hash eaters, including Victor Hugo and Dumas. That's hilarious. Okay, and Balzac.
Yeah.
Balzac was my favorite. Look at that guy. Don't you just want to be Balzac all the time?
Le Miserable.
And that bottle of sherry. No, that's Victor Hugo.
What was I just talking about? It was fucking important. I can't remember.
What was it? You're
Scientology's
Scientology.
Oh yeah. So basically, his one of his main things that he's fixated on is the way that he was seeing Scientology was using psychiatry to fuck with people. Right. So he was basically like, if somebody is a dissenter, like if somebody you don't agree with, whatever, how you can label them crazy and get them dealt with. And that involves drugs and all kinds of shit. And so like that was one of the main accusations that Burroughs was making towards Scientology when he wrote that book, which is an older book, which I feel is significant because it's like, has any of that changed, you know, or has it just gotten more of what he was describing, you know?
Yeah, my family in Camarillo, the Camarillo Mental Hospital was from 1936 to 1997, and a number of my family were in it. My great-great-grandmother was like the first person diagnosed with manic depression or something in the United States, I think, and also the first person given electroshock therapy in California, and a number of different other ones. Like my grandmother was on lithium longer than anyone else alive into her 90s because the mental, so I feel like there's a lot of evidence that mental health is not necessarily made better by some of the things that shocking people's brains, right?
If you want to start getting real deep into this too, look up all of the earliest sort of programs that the Scottish Rite Northern Jurisdiction Supreme Council funded, which was all that early, and it goes back to I think like 1934. But man, like
same
if
with
you
the
look
DMT
at
research too.
I'm telling you, this is where all psychedelic research really came from. It came from this adrenochrome, schizophrenia, dementia precox research, and the Scottish Rite, they started funding in the 1934, and this is actually where we got Ritalin from and the concept of ADHD. That was one of the very first things that they funded. They also did a study on alcoholism in children, which is crazy to see. Like on the bottom, it's like, thank you to the Scottish Rite 33 for funding this, this experiment. And it's insane when you look at the things they actually did.
Well, Dr. Rick Strassman, who wrote the DMT spirit molecule, right? And his whole research in New Mexico was funded by Scottish Rite. He admitted to it, and he also said that when they pulled the plug in 1994, that's when they placed DMT as a class A schedules substance.
I remember this logo now, driving by the Scottish Rite Temple on 19th Avenue, San Francisco, because they actually still have research there.
So look at the link that I just sent in the chat there, if you could, Andreas. So there's a lawyer in Santa Cruz who's actually responsible for this becoming public domain, I guess, or whatever. It's like making early Masonic ritual available to the public, and so included in this article, if you scroll down, it shows the use of what appears to be ayahuasca, described as an Amazonian brew, being used by early Freemasons. You can actually read through the whole. There's probably a link here somewhere, but you can read through the whole ritual in its old writing, like what it was, like the document itself, which is pretty incredible.
You know what? Isn't that what exactly Aleister Crowley went through in Mexico? I mean, when he got his 33rd degree honorary degree in Mexico, I mean, he spent like some time with the shamans, right? Thomas, do you know the story behind that?
I've always heard it was mescaline, but it's really hard to tell because mescaline was sort of like the popular thing that again spread around. I think that's what inspired Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley actually got his mescaline from these guys that had the buttons sent to them to do schizophrenic research. One of those passed it off to Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley wrote Doors of Perception as he was coming down off of that high that the scientists gave him. So it really does, like, it all connects, and you don't even have to bend over backwards and put on the tinfoil hat and start like peeking behind curtains. Like, it's literally all connected.
Can I just
adrenochrome research, schizophrenia, psychiatry.
Can I just say that it would sure explain a lot when it comes to, like, because we know with Burroughs that he went to the Amazon and he took ibogaine, he took ayahuasca. But it would sure explain a lot with Crowley too, how he could argue that he was never addicted to heroin and yet snorted shit tons of heroin, apparently. I do know that ibogaine is a type of deprogrammer. I forget what the statistics actually are, but the amount of people that do ibogaine and die is extremely high. Like, when they take it, they just die. And I've actually spoken to people who went to Mexico with other people who died in front of them. But the variable in that is that a lot of the people who are taking it are heroin junkies. And so it must really rock the system, but it's a reprogrammer, and so for somebody to be able to not have to break a psychological and even a physical addiction and yet the type of relationship that they have to that substance shifts. That was Aleister Crowley's first novel was Diary of a Drug Fiend, which really kind of like shows just the thelemic philosophy, but one of like how they essentially yield to overcome. It's almost described like the same way I've seen martial arts described, where it's like, your relationship to something determines what its real effects are, not just the substance that you take. I think we live in a way where when people talk about, oh, what does this substance do? But it's like, yeah, the substance does one thing, but what you do with it is like a whole other level, where you go with it, and I think that's like when you look at somebody like Danny Carey from Tool or something, like what there's this idea that they only take the substances when they're like focusing on the great work, like this is being used for this end, like they don't treat it like recreational. I don't know how true that is for them. It's probably not.
Dang it, Thomas, you had to go and find this. This is brutal. Let's look at this. Pink Adrenaline, 1951. Our work began in Saskatchewan. How's that for your MK Canada fixation, everybody? All right, after Bleuler's comments,
Bleuler, that's a name to go down a rabbit hole another day too.
Yeah. All right. Well, we could elaborate in a second. Also, toxic theories of schizophrenia were at about their lowest ebb. Without new methods, we could explore and expect no support. We researched the literature to find out how many hallucinogens were known, defining these as being substances with a mescaline-like action, which did not produce clouding and confusion of consciousness or major bodily disturbances. We could only find 4 in the United States and British pharmacopedias whose structural formula was known. These are mescaline itself, lysergic acid diethylamide, harmine, and ibogaine. The status of the 2 last were shaky, though it was later confirmed. Hashish was left out because its active principle was in doubt, and it is still uncertain.
So this is a direct link of them saying adrenochrome had a similar structure to mescaline, ibogaine. This is insane, dude. Like the research into adrenochrome has been way more detailed and has so much more meat to it than I ever would have expected. And he gives he kind of gives that shout out to Bleuler there. Bleuler is in I think 1908. He actually came up with the term schizophrenia. He's kind of at the epicenter of all of this. A lot of things sprawls out from him.
So how does Artie Lang fit in? Does Artie Lang fit in?
Oh my God, he would never do ibogaine to cure himself, man.
No, but what happened with R.D. Lang was that later in his career, following knots and all that, whatever, he was prescribing people a lot of stuff, and he seemed like he completely changed his relationship to substances. Because there was a while there where he was just like seemed like he was just opposed to the use of substances in psychology. He was just got very into Zen. Yeah.
You also mentioned William S. Burroughs. There's a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Eddie.
Oh no! Just a quick story. That, like I when I was spending time with Graham Hancock in Brazil, he in his book he explained it too. Like why he went to Africa to do ibogaine was because he missed his father at his deathbed in the hospital. He passed away while he was traveling, so he was trying to use ibogaine to contact his father, and I forgot whether he succeeded or not. But. That's one of the greatest usage of ibogaine besides trying to cure your.
I think it's actually ibogaine, but whatever.
Yeah, good call. I think it is.
Burroughs
I like ibogaine.
Burroughs is interesting though. I mean, he's all about the 23 Enigma and his connection to inner zone. Beyond just Naked Lunch, like even just the concoction of reality that he's kind of portraying.
Did you know that Lenny Bruce did DMT? Lenny Bruce has talked about doing DMT. Really? It's recorded. I listened to it the other night with Bill. I didn't believe him, and then Bill showed me the recording. I'm like, well, you can't argue with that. And they're like, isn't that like a non-sanctioned drug? Isn't that like a non-public drug? Like, hasn't that drug not been disclosed or whatever? And he's like, oh yeah, and he says the circumstances in which he was given it. And so
only if you knew Henry Luce or someone else in Skull and Bones, then you might get
right. But here we have another example with somebody who was a full-on heroin junkie who got like these people's relationship to substances isn't the same as like a lot of people end up, and so I don't know.
Well, I think that Burroughs might have had some deeper connections because he's always kind of seen as like this counterculture outsider, rebel, catalyst, shaker upper. But in Naked Lunch in '59, one of the main characters is Dr. Benway, and Benway has this special formula that essentially is just to make you docile. that you can kind of like exercise control over you. Well, very little people knew about this actual drug that it was very much based on, and it was called bulbocapanine or something.
Oh yeah.
And if you look up that bulbocapanine, this was actually, dude, this is crazy. This was one of the very first substances that they actually recovered from the concentration camps in Germany, that actually predated and were directly related to this same exact schizophrenia research we're talking about. And the number of people that must have known what this substance was, you could probably count them on both hands at this point in time. So the fact that it made an entrance, not by name, but by every other description in this book, it indicates that like you didn't just come across I can't pronounce it, bulbocapanine or whatever, but I don't think you just came across this in like, you know, your hippie club. Like this was some pretty serious stuff to have.
What do you know? What do you know about adrenolutin?
Adrenolutin is just another thing that they claim might be the actual schizophrenic aspect, because all the research done so far, adrenochrome, they haven't been able to consistently say like this is actually the cause of schizophrenia, or that this is strong enough to be considered as like this ultimate drug. But adrenolutin is one. Oxytocin, I'm probably mispronouncing that one.
Oxytocin.
And I always go to this analogy, but of like the entourage effect. Of like marijuana. So like if you have THC isolate, it's completely different if you've got full spectrum plant and you've got the terpenes and you've got all the different products that come from like a full plant. I think there's something like that goes with this adrenochrome, where you can't just have adrenochrome. You got to have the adrenaline, the adrenolutin, the adrenochrome, and like there's like 4 or 5 other.
A good example is DOM 2-5. Any of the 2-5 dimethoxyphores are really interesting psychedelics because they have like they're pretty psychedelic serotonin attached, and there's a chlorothalonine and there's an iodine and chlorine.
That looks so familiar to mescaline too, which has that like.
But the reason this one came up because it was introduced at Woodstock as brown acid. They're like, oh, attention, there's some bad brown acid going around. That was DOM, which is otherwise referred to as STP for strength, tranquility, and presence.
Right. So then Altamont, this is what everyone was given.
Yeah.
Not everyone.
Okay. Well, how do these guys have any? How would these guys have any like? So first off, the Hells Angels are delivering the stuff for Shulgin, who's working with the chemist Owsley the Bear. Who's Owsley the Bear? Well, Owsley's grandfather was governor of Kentucky, right? Owsley Stanley the First, because he's the third, and House of Representatives, and campaigned against the Prohibition in the 1920s. So there you have your link right there to all of the secret clubs and fraternities and colleges before you get to the hippie movement. And so this idea of the counterculture movement started because of dudes in Washington who were chemists, is the same as saying PCP wasn't invented by black kids in inner cities either. It was also invented by Washington chemists. Right.
And LSD is extremely rare. Just to jump over, it's relatable. On an aside, LSD is extremely rare. What you get is research chemicals. And so, like, I don't know what the percentage actually is, but most of what people call LSD nowadays, it doesn't even hardly resemble what actual LSD is. Actual LSD is actually in its effects far more similar to mescaline than it is what most people today call acid. So like
2CB or something like that, right?
Yeah. In fact, I've been told that in San Francisco, it's really difficult actually if you are somebody who's looking to make money off of LSD. Not that I've ever been one of those people, but those people exist, and those people have to cut it with other research chemicals in order for most party goers to feel like they're not getting something bunk. Because if you give them actual pure LSD, they're like, what is this shit? Where's my brain bubbles, man?
Yeah. I mean, it's also interesting, just of course, the connection to all these guys that are super powerful. But yeah, go ahead, Eddie. Sorry, Eddie, what do you say?
You know that story with the missiles? Back in the 90s, it was like the biggest LSD
right,
lab,
the Texas missile silo, or was it Texas? Kansas, the Kansas, and of course.
But the girl, this girl, she was, this girl, her name is Crystal Cole, I think, and she was the one who was she was an ex-stripper who was like dating all these guys. Skinner, is this Skinner Pickard? Is that his name? Oh, Pickard,
right? And he definitely, and then the Bush shut him down.
Yeah, but he's like a rich kid. Yeah, but his background is very mysterious, and he died not too long ago. He just died like 2 years ago. Pickard, the missile silo in Kansas, I think, right?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
William Pickard. Sorry, William Pickard. Yeah. So his connection was very bizarre. Well, I think there was a Vice special made about him, right? And basically, it's like this vast tunnel underground, nuclear bunker. Basically, that's where they're hiding, and they're making like megatons. I don't know how many. It's the biggest LSD supplier at the time in the whole world, and but he later got arrested, and this girl Crystal, she just like basically named everybody, got everybody
Well, yeah,
arrested
because
because
he'd like given her like lethal doses of LSD and like lots of
yeah,
torture
with
was
another
going on
boyfriend. Yeah,
in the silo.
it was
The dude was
it's a
definitely
crazy
crazy. He had
story.
some serious Epstein vibes. You know, he's got a compound and a little religion.
Oh, dude, you just said Epstein. The fucking Human Genome Project. It actually got its roots in these dudes we were just talking about. Those the American Breeders Club. That essentially
That's
is
the
where
fucking
the Human
thing,
Genome
man.
Project comes from.
That's why these people with their they have these shared ideologies. It's like people want to talk about the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, and they so like I got corrected because I thought that the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds both of them were Jewish families. They're not. And but what the thing is when you go to look into them, you're like, these people donate so much money to the state of Israel all the time. And the thing is like, you're like, so do fundamentalist Christians. What the fuck does that even mean? Like their relationship to what all of that is not the same as what the way that it gets presented. You know what I mean?
So the Genome Project was
Well,
started by a guy named Franz Kallman, and Franz Kallman, you're going to see his name in every single one of the original adrenochrome specifically research, but all of that early adrenaline and schizophrenia research. It's Kallmann, Franz. And this guy is essentially where the Human Genome Project started from, the one that we know from Epstein fame now.
well,
Yeah, there he is.
I don't know, man. There's a very grand scheme going on. I'm starting to see a picture going on with
Interesting.
with
I'm
this
telling you,
whole
like
AI.
you don't have to try to find these connections because it literally there's just a straight line that connects all.
Right? Totally.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
I don't know. I'm starting to worry that they because next year, right? They're trying to plan to roll out a whole bunch of
He fled
new
Germany in
laws.
1936 because of his Jewish heritage. Paradoxically, he had been a student of Ernst Rudin, one of the architects of racial hygiene policies in Nazi Germany. In a speech delivered in 1935, while still in Germany, he advocated for the extermination of relatives of schizophrenia patients with the aim to find and sterilize the non-affected carriers of the supposed recessive gene responsible for the condition.
You know, a lot of people don't know this too, but Alexander Graham Bell, he had like a school for deaf children, and they taught sign language and everything. But he was actually very much in favor of eradicating deafness and mute and being mute through eugenics. He actually found it abhorrent that people were
it's
even
like
allowed
fucking
to
Kissinger and shit. You find these quotes from these people, like some of the things that they'll say, their attitudes, man. You're like, for real? Or aren't you not? Wait, what?
Did I talk about this last week about Canada they're about to legalize they're ready to roll out basically the applicants for suicide, right? They said people with mental health can now apply for suicide.
That's going to save a lot of money on the medical establishment.
So,
I mean, come on.
I do episodes on this recently on MK Canada because Canada we're talking about this on Thursdays. But it's interesting because you've got first off people that are totally in decent spirits told, hey, like I need some help because I'm a former veteran, I'm a former soldier, I'm a veteran, and they say, oh well, have you considered medically assisted in dying? Induced death. And they're like, wait, what? Like, how could you? Why would you say that? And so then there's also kids. They're like, what? You can be a mature minor. So if you're a depressed minor, a mature minor is 1 year old. So 1 to 12 is a mature minor, and you can now, they're putting this on the bill in Canada for mature minors to go through MAID. So I mean, this is a thing that's out there.
Yeah,
it's insane. I mean, it's like a whole this is Pandora's box. They basically human lives are at stake. I mean,
But it
they
is
can.
interesting comparing it to California because, like, if you look it up, it's a wiki even, so there's more than a book. But the eugenics in California movement, I mean, the Nazis, when they were in Nuremberg, they're like, "Why did you do it?" And they're like, "Well, we were just trying to keep up with California. Everything Californians were doing, sterilizing deaf people, sterilizing Basques, sterilizing blind people. But yeah, Basques, I mean, something like 81%, 80% of sterilizations nationwide were happening in California in 1921.
And you
So-
look at next year, Newsom, he's trying to plan on basically turning human bodies into what's that?
Nobody talks about the Napa State Hospital. The Napa State
body.
In what's this Napa State Hospital in
They're trying to
Napa?
turn it into,
What do you got?
Yeah.
oh God, what's that word? Into fertilizers. They're trying
Right,
to turn
yeah.
human
Soil
bodies
and
into
Green.
fertilizer.
We're getting there.
Is that in Napa? That picture? What are we looking at? What is
Napa State Hospital. So it's getting into that Tartaria wave, like looking at all these crazy castles and cathedrals. Napa's full of these wine country places. And so you imagine you're taken to the Napa State Hospital, and it's this giant, scary place. And all they find that's wrong with you is that you come from a Basque family,
Yeah.
straight up. Or maybe you're deaf, or maybe you're related to a deaf person. The things were pretty loose in the early 20s in California. And
you just had like postpartum depression, right? You just had a kid and you're not feeling so hot.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
there were
Isn't
often
this-
people that were put in mental institutions in California because they couldn't speak English.
This is at the center of the Kanye thing, because you're talking about somebody who's basically got what is essentially handlers. I think he's got more handlers, and we could talk about that one guy who's his quote unquote trainer or whatever. But I see Fuentes as a handler. I see he's surrounded, but he reminds me of Michael Jackson in that particular way, where it's just like he's being kind of monitored. And they've drugged him in the past. They want to keep drugging him, I'm sure. Like, it's just that it's so that issue, and that Scientology does that. I bet you all kinds of organizations do that to people, where anybody who's a member or not a member that decides that they need to go against the thing, the crazy card is like a go-to. They can
what
ruin
the heck
people
is
with that.
this? Danish orphan subjected to secret CIA-backed experiments. What
this one's a fairly new one, and actually there's I'm going to send you another link too that you'll have to translate into English with like one of the Google Translates, whatever. But man, this documentary is less than a year old, and it's already impossible to find anywhere. I've got a few friends that actually live in Denmark and have been unable to find this. Every single link.
Danish orphanage children used in secret examination supported by the CIA.
So they find Danish orphans, and they literally do MK Ultra experiments on them. One of the kids, I think, was 9 years old when it started. This started in 1960, I believe. And in these things, they basically just played them like really scary movies and scary sounds that were really meant to kind of like raise your adrenaline levels.
They're Clockwork Orange, yeah.
Very much Clockwork Orange, yeah. This was essentially like this right here. Per Wernick is asked as an 11-year-old if he wants to try something fun at the municipal hospital, which is about how children feel, and he says yes. And then he says he undergoes a series of tests periodically that evoke the strongest memories. He puts on headphones to listen to loud noises, screams, and phrases that should scare him. Through electrodes placed on his body, palpitations are measured, body temperature, and sweat level. This is essentially, they were trying to see how you could turn a child schizophrenic without using drugs, because again, they were researching this thing called dementia praecox, which really means like early onset dementia. They kind of had given up, like, once you turn 70, once you turn a certain age, you're going to go crazy. But how the hell is it affecting these young people? And they wanted to like figure out how to isolate that, just the way that they isolated adrenaline as a chemical. They wanted to isolate schizophrenia as a chemical. And this is one of the ways that they try to get to it.
Did you ever listen to the recordings of Ken Kesey from MK Ultra? Those are disclosed. You can listen to all the I don't know where you'd find that now, but they play a little clip of it in the documentary about when they went to the World's Fair from the west to
Magic
east coast.
Dreams, the Magic
yeah,
Dreams.
But so they play a little clip of it. I believe it was in this. But you can actually find that is out there. Is the recordings of Ken Kesey, or at least I found them years ago.
Yeah, I mean the thing that's interesting now is that we have the Freedom of Information Act, and even in the Magic Dreams documentary, they admit it's like it's very interesting now. We're making this documentary now that we know that they were being spied on and protected their entire trip across America, and that Kesey probably knew. I mean, in fact, he had to, and that they're wearing red, white, and blue shirts the entire time, right? Like further red, white, and blue. Like he's like, hey everybody, why don't we put on these shirts and I don't know, there you go, this stuff. He's like, here, you guys are gonna wear all of these American themed shirts. And then eventually they invented tie-dye because they were on acid and AMT up in Canada.
And this shot actually I think is when they were on AMT, right?
Yeah, IT-290, and so that's when they're supposedly dyeing their clothes for the first time. But they're driving across America wearing the flag as much as possible. And he was a ventriloquist for the was it Berkeley? It's a Berkeley UC student and a ventriloquist and a gymnast, and it's like all of the perfect things, like a straight man to play the part and to do the voice of the MK Ultra.
So One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was actually written from kind of a direct experience. It's inspired by what he saw at the facility.
Yeah, but my dad has some qualms because he was friends with the son of the nurse in real life in Mountain View. Like he grew up with
the nurse that he's depicting with Nurse Ratched. Well, keeping in mind that the thing that upset Ken Kesey most about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the movie, was that in the book, Nurse Ratched isn't like the central villain, the institution itself is. And so he felt that by this dramatization of that and making her kind of the evil focus, it took away from what he was really trying to get at, which was more about MK Ultra and the psychiatry being used on people in ways that was just totally wrong.
Yeah, the native is like your free spirit and she's just following orders, but still sucks if it's your friend's mom. I get it. But yeah, that is the problem with maybe it's a very true point, is that so many people are just enforcing the system, which is Holocaustal in some way.
Why is the name Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? I mean,
because a cuckoo takes over a nest and pretends to be one of the bird's babies, and then it fucks everything up. So Jack Nicholson's character landing there was supposed to be the equivalent of a cuckoo stirring up the nest,
Yeah. Also, I would say the cuckoo clock has to do with the fact that it is time. Now is the time for the transition native Aquarius and change.
Oh, yeah.
I have a song. I don't know if I can get it to play, but I know that I have the rights to because I'm bros with the dude. So I'm gonna play this song. Let me see if I can get that to work.
You can be bros with somebody and fucking YouTube won't even sometimes you might have to send an email afterwards, but it's hard sometimes, man.
YouTube's taking my own videos down using my own music just because I had to use some other service to license.
I put up my good friend's music and they wouldn't let me do it, and I'm like, oh, and then I called back my friend and she's like, I can't get them to change it. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Fair use, bro. Andrea, we can't hear you, just so you know.
I'll skip ahead.
Dr. Benway.
What's the man?
Dig it, man. It's groovy.
Do a strange thing to your soul, and you never get down and you never grow. Oh, I'm locked in space and shot at the sky. Don't know why I got a rainbow. Rainbow.
I'll take it. That was good enough for me. Very well.
I dig.
That was awesome.
Yeah, Dr. Benway, our good friend Subakia, good band. The reason not just because Dr. Benway was a cool part of Naked Lunch and William Burroughs, but also because there's a guy named Dr. Benway who used to sell research chemicals on the internet to kids in the 90s, and then he got arrested And so my friend Maitland, who's playing the bass in that, he's sitting in a bar one time, and there's this guy dressed up like the Marlboro Man who's laughing at him. And he's like, "You don't know what's going on, do you? You should get out of town. You should get out of the state like tonight." And then his mom ended up. He went to Wyoming or something to work at like Yellowstone. But then his mom got flown to do a trial for this Dr. Benway guy who got like life in jail consecutive thousands of times for selling research chemicals, which were technically legal. All because Usenet forums were spreading the word about these things. And some of the dudes like Paul Ryan and Bill Gates and guys who were on the Usenet forums got freaked out because allegedly some of them got some of those legal research chemicals. So I always find that interesting.
Speaking of research chemicals, and just because it's kind of in the news, but I did a somewhat of a deep dive on all the synthetic marijuana sort of origins, and a lot of those were made in like it was like Hebrew University, and I think, and a lot of the acronyms start with HU or JB, for the
JBL, Jabulon. Yeah, so the Czech Republic ones are all the JBL ones, but the Israeli ones are really interesting. And some of the other drugs that are research chemicals they don't talk about, like methoxetamine, which is illegal to the UN, which is crazy. But it was invented by an Israeli student who'd lost his hand and had phantom limb syndromes. So he's constantly feeling pain. So he invented this new substitute for codeine that is dissociative, has minor serotonin uptake. So it's like a nootropic. And unfortunately, if you take like certain amounts of it, then you become so disassociated, like you experience that like acute dissociation.
Your hand won't grow back, you mean?
That would be neat, but no. But so there are all these cool things, and then that's like probably a worthy thing to spend your time on is to watch that documentary Dirty Pictures about Alexander Shulgin, because the pharmaceutical industries, you already know, like they'll make a drug and then they'll make it impossible for you to don't look for dirty pictures on Instagram with strict search. God, I'm so bad at that. Or Shulgin, if I type in Shulgin, that'll probably help.
You got to be careful with that.
2010 Shulgin. I'll go to the IMDb, but you can get it for free on Amazon and Odyssey and YouTube and everything like that. I think it's free verse on. And basically, the deal with this though is Shulgin was inventing all these drugs, while the pharmaceutical companies, they make a drug. By the time it's safe to use, it's a generic. So then they make a new drug because they don't want to have something that anyone else can have, right? And so these drugs are all he's putting them out into the public. Look, here's the symbol, and if you can make it yourself, you can figure it out. And he's friends with the DEA, and this guy in the main picture you see right here. He actually had an experience where a church collapsed because of an earthquake while he was in it, and he had completely forgotten. And then he took some ecstasy during a MAPS therapy session and was able to process the fact that someone's head was decapitated and landed in his lap as like a 12.
Oh God. So
a lot of these people, they're like, hey, there's uses to some of these, there's benefits to this stuff, but pharmaceutical companies don't want you to use that.
Who's the guy that had the wife that was like who's the ecstasy guru, like the big ecstasy guru guy?
Shulgin and Sasha. I mean, he was Sasha Shulgin, Alexander Shulgin.
Is that him? Okay, so I fucking shouted at this fucking guy. For real, like, so I was at Entheon Village like years ago, and I guess it was him. He was giving a talk. He's supposed to be the big ecstasy guru guy there with his wife, and they were talking. And they're answering all kinds of questions, super casually, whatever. And this dude who was kind of dressed like a leather daddy, beside the point, whatever. This dude stands up to his handed the microphone, and he asks him in a very like well-qualified way. He just wanted to know about potential serotonin loss and different damages that can occur with years of ecstasy use or whatever. And he was just like, he wasn't even accusing. He's just like, I don't even know. Like,
5-HTP, man.
He was like, can you just talk to me about what the issues are surrounding that? And this guy fucking said, I didn't hear the question. And when he went to repeat it, he had them take away the microphone from the guy. He was like, no. Like, he was like, I don't want to touch it. And I fucking shouted at him. I was like, I don't remember exactly what I said, but
don't tase me, bro.
Yeah, kind of. I was like, dude, that was a legitimate question. Like, a lot of us are interested, or something like that. And they just moved it along, and I fucking got out and I fucking walked out of the room because I was like, this is bullshit. I think I even said that out loud. I was like, this is bullshit. Because I'm like, dude, I don't like. I've taken MDMA. I found that and the first time I ever took ecstasy, my fucking teeth were grinding like crazy because it was cut with some shit, and I was at a rave in San Francisco. It was a fucking gross experience. I did not care for that like chattery fucking teeth bullshit thing. Oh, I've only had that happen that one time, dude. And I'm like, dude, I was super careful taking MDMA after that, but that's something else. It says it was cut with something, but just exactly. What a legitimate fucking question for somebody like that. I would want to hear what he has to say about it, and I think he did a lot more damage not addressing it than fucking
the best episode of Mr. Wizard ever.
Everybody take your 5-HTP every morning so you won't be blue. Don't be blue.
I mean, allegedly, just kidding, not medical advice or anything like that. But yeah, 5-HTP is pretty cool. And then also L-tryptophan. Is that right? L-tryptophan? L-tryptophan is pretty good.
Oh, man, dude.
That helps you produce your own.
I've gone down this little rabbit hole of dream drugs lately. And there's one that I found that I legitimately think has been helping me out a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can find out what it was and see if you got an opinion on it.
That's
a brand new area. I used to date a Wiccan girl, and she had all this crazy herbal stuff that was, like you think mugwort, and apparently all that stuff can help produce tryptophan, and having CBD, these things can be good for your dreams. I've noticed that people that smoke cannabis dream less, or they don't remember their dreams.
Yeah, that's true.
So actually, I did a really long, detailed lucid dreaming course with, I think it was lucidcenter.org. Shout out to lucidcenter.org. And they actually, man, this guy was incredible. He gave me this advice, and he said that for people that are heavy cannabis users, it does absolutely suppress your typical dreams. But what you can do is you can make it work for you. So if you just basically go cold turkey within about 24 hours, you can trigger these like incredibly lucid dreams. So if you've got enough discipline, you can actually just keep doing like tolerance breaks over and over, but use it to be training yourself for reality checks within these lucid dreams. So
story of my life, actually, dude. I know all about that. I know what you're talking about. It's so true. If you smoke weed for a while and you just cut it, man, your dreams, holy fuck.
Yeah.
And it was that galanamine.
It does inhibit your dream. The thing is that I just have another recipe, because I've been taking turmeric a lot lately because my teeth is like a mess right now. So I got
probably from all the turmeric.
Pain. So,
I'm sorry, but yellow.
It's been a year since I've been taking every day, and my dream got stronger. I mean, I have been absent from dream. I mean, I'm getting old, right? I'm almost 50 now. I could not remember my dreams at all for like the last 10 years. And after I started this turmeric thing, and my wife is helping my wife too, and my dreams got like colorful, and I remember a lot of them now.
Man, another really great tip, man.
Try yourself.
If you're trying to remember dreams, like you just described, like not having them for 10 years or anything, I'm very similar. And one way that dramatic, like 10x increases, is that as soon as you wake up, you need to start training yourself to be conscious, to immediately think, what was I just dreaming of? And sometimes you can go through, like if you know that you personally have certain archetypes that you visit a lot, like my teeth fall out a lot. I usually go to jail a lot. I usually end up like parking my car and losing it and looking for it for like hours. But like as soon as I wake up, I go through all of those common archetypes, and then every once in a while I'll be like, oh wait, actually that was part of the dream. And the more you do that, just almost like miraculously, you'll just start waking up and not even have to think about it, and you'll start remembering it.
Have you ever been given a gift in a dream, so to speak? Like, have you ever gotten like some like special bit of information that's just completely impacted your life from a dream?
That's usually why I wear pockets in my PJs.
Dude, every so often in my life, I'll meet somebody in a dream, and they'll just give me some like fucking crucial component to what I'm trying to process in my waking life that I can't quite get. And then in a dream, I'll have some like big fucking insight that's like imparted to me. I something happened with the relationship of the upper to lower world in the Kabbalistic tree of life involving the Masonic G in a dream come to me, where it was describing this twist of like from Bina to Chesed, and how that's not a diagonal line. And like I've tripped out on it in my life, like in my Kabbalah studies with my rabbi leading up to this leading up to this point, but the real insight came from a dream. And it's like, it reminds me of that idea that, like, you know, you do a lot of work, and then it's actually in the relaxation that you have the insight, like what they talk about in Pi with Archimedes, where Archimedes sees the bathwater rise and he realizes that weight is a way to determine volume, which is a way to determine density. When he sees his foot enter the bath, like that kind of thing. It's like, where it's, I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely, yeah. Archimedes.
That's
Gold.
not just him, but like that phenomenon where it's
Eureka.
like you'll be working towards something, then it's like in the gap or in the space that the insight actually comes, you know.
Eureka moment. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a guy named
just real quick before I forget. I'm sorry, Andrea. Can you just look up real quick the adrenalutin, right? That I was talking about that can be converted to from adrenochrome.
Where do I look up adrenalutin?
Look at the adrenalutin. Look at the compound. Look at the. Go to,
I think it's TIN.
See, it says ho ho ho.
Oh, that's cute.
Maybe that's what's
That's pretty interesting.
Maybe that's Santa Claus. Santa Claus is the blood drinker. I don't know. I just saw that. The way it's like ho ho ho.
Yeah. I wanted to vibe on what David was saying a little bit. I think it was headed in a little bit of this direction because we were talking about like kind of getting these epiphanies, sort of like in this in between state. And there's this guy named Benjamin Paul Blood that wrote a series of books in the late 1800s. And there's it's kind of complicated, but essentially he went to get a tooth removed and got really stoned on nitrous oxide. And as he's walking home on nitrous, he swears Benjamin Paul Blood, Blood, and he swears that as he's coming off of this nitrous, it's called oh man, I can't remember. If you just search for nitrous. This isn't. There's one called the philosophy is anesthesia. Oh, right there, the anesthetic revelation. So the title kind of gives it away, but it's that as he's coming off these drugs, he swears that he's for the first time in his life understand all of Hegel. Like as he's coming off of nitrous. And one of the book quotes from I've got a quote here from the Republican, September 28th, 1878, because this is when he was publishing his work, and he says. Paul Benjamin Blood says one learns more in recovering from chloroform than from Hegel's metaphysics, which some also have to recover from.
Oh my God.
But it goes into the thing I was talking about before about the snuff and the pineal gland. They all said this exact same thing, that as they were coming out of this stupor and into this sober state, that slow little transition, every single one of them felt that they had like their arms wrapped around these secrets of the universe and this great knowledge, but then by the time you're fully sober, like you've just got like a tiny little like echo of it left. You don't have any of it.
Right. So isn't that the meaning of El Dorado? That when you try to bring back the gold, it turns to dirt? I feel like I've heard Alan Watts talk about that. Like that it's basically like to take something back from your dreams, to have something that's tangible that you can take back with you, you know.
Well, so Benjamin Paul Blood says that nitrous is the thing that lets you take little nuggets of gold back. Like you actually can recover them slowly, bit by bit. Sorry, Eddie,
who knows? It's probably true.
It's kind of you guys seen what's Excalibur the movie, right? Yeah. Remember how what's his name? The last one that's trying to look for the
sword.
No, the cup.
I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
The
Holy
Grail.
Grail.
Right? Holy Grail.
Yeah.
So what's his name? The guy who was
Percival.
He became the knight.
Percival.
Yeah, Percival. Percival. He
pierced the veil,
almost,
by the way.
Yeah, like he almost reached the Grail, right? Because he was almost dead. He was being lynched. He was having oxygen reduction. If you look at nitrous oxide, you know what nitrous oxide does mainly is to kill your brain cells. It's cutting off.
It doesn't though, and I used to say that all the time to people. And I dated a woman with a PhD who is very familiar with the technical effects of nitrous oxide. It's not actually.
There's a lot of other things about it.
I've never been into it myself, and I'm annoyed with people fucking cracking it while I'm at fucking festivals and I'm trying to sleep during the day, you know, and they're all fighting over them, you know.
It'd be way cooler if it was a helium tank at Burning Man. That's what
Yeah, it doesn't actually kill that many brain cells. I was told that it killed more brain cells than so many substances for the shortest lived high. It's
if
not
you look
actually
up-
true.
There's
but-
a
There's
guy
oxide. The oxide means there's oxygen in it, but there are problems. For instance, it can
No,
give brain
not
lesions
really.
if you take it all the time. If it's super cold, people freeze their mouth. The guy who won the
Yeah,
1997 Nobel Peace Prize froze his mouth because he passed out doing nitrous.
Yeah.
People
You have
vitamin B
vitamin B
depletion,
deficiency.
calcium depletion. There's all sorts of
Yeah.
things that you got to be
Right.
careful
What
for.
the most common effect of long-term nitrous oxide usage is that you'll go numb in your fingers and your toes, and if you keep doing it and without getting which has to do with a vitamin B deficiency. And so if you keep doing it without supplementing more vitamin B, eventually that numbness will go further into your body, and if it reaches your chest, that's really fucking bad. So yeah, nitrous, and so people who are like nitrous burnouts, people who did it way too much and didn't get enough vitamin B, it'll fuck up your spinal cord, and they'll end up walking in like a really weird way. So it's get it all twisted. It almost looks like cerebral palsy. But that's like years and years and years of and not doing any supplementing. Yeah,
compulsion and not doing stuff with your mind kills brain cells as well. Like, so if you're just sitting there playing video games and not doing, same thing with taking nitrous. I'm sure if you're sitting on the floor all day, it's not gonna make your life that much better, probably.
Well, I need to stand up for nitrous addicts for 1 second, because if you look up Sir Humphrey Davy, who's the guy that basically found nitrous and found oxygen and
saved many people, because before Humphrey Davy, people used to just torture people in front of people for their own amusement without any anesthetic.
That is right. So he was kind of the father of anesthetics. But this guy is one of my favorite stories. Is that you look at this guy and you see this refined, put together scientist, but really he was a 19-year-old college kid that discovered nitrous, and the second they discovered it, they literally made a huge tent, and they just filled this tent and would sit in this tent for 3 to 4 hours at a time, and just laughing their ass off. And it was such a hit that they went on the road and they brought it to America, and they would just set up a tent.
It was,
and they would charge people.
It was substance. It was substance like 763 or 863, something like that. So the other thing is the names of these things. So you get people that were chemists working in noble gases, and you could buy a gas that someone had worked on with a number on it. And then what would you do with it? You could breathe it. And so this is so crazy, the kinds of things that they were doing in order to figure out which gases you could breathe that wouldn't kill you. L.
Ron Hubbard was also a strong advocate for that as well, for nitrous oxide.
I he invented the balloon too. He invented the.
Yeah, there's a piece of.
Now, by the way.
There's a book or whatever by L. Ron Hubbard that focuses heavily on nitrous oxide.
We're gonna have to look that up.
It's true.
Okay, but back to dentists here, right? We're talking about dentists are like they're the ultimate drug dealers. I mean, you look at Philip K. Dick, Look at what happened to him. He had like some serious like root canal, right? And then next thing you know, what's that drug called that he used, that the one that Crumb through his spirit experience.
He said he didn't know what that was. Crumb said it was supposed to be LSD. He didn't know what it was. Do you know what it was? That made everything fuzzy for a while.
I forgot what it's called.
Yeah, he said.
I hope it was AMT, or maybe it was Foxy.
Yeah, he does. That'd be. I'm really interested to know that, actually, because. Oh, is that right? Yeah. That sounds familiar. Yeah, because R. Crumb said that his best characters came out from a period where he took a substance apparently one time, and it just lasted for fucking like a long. I don't remember how long he said, a few weeks or something. But like Fritz the Cat, Mr. Natural, and like all his best characters came out of this quote unquote fuzzy period where he had a chemical that was supposed to be LSD but wasn't.
What's that stuff called? Oh my god, I know what you're talking about. It was so popular. Quaaludes.
It wasn't Quaaludes.
Really?
I don't think so.
It's not Quaaludes. Well, Quaaludes is in the family. Quaaludes is in the same family. Wait, hold on. Let me look at the ingredients again. Go back to the last picture.
Also, there was Romulan too, which was an over-the-counter form of DXM that was available. Methyl quinzolothione. It's hard you can't find almost anything that's Quaalone anymore.
Hey, David, I don't know if you did this. Sorry, go ahead, Eddie.
Oh no, it's something.
Benzene. Oh, he wants to get more. Sorry.
God.
Yeah, the benzene. I don't think the benzos are related to it.
What were you going to ask me? Unless you got it. Sorry, Eddie.
Go look up Crumb. Go look at Crumb. Philip K. Dick's religious experience. The comics. It says it in there.
Oh, does it? Yeah.
Religious experience. Yeah, I think it's the first page.
But you're saying
Yeah,
that
so if
was
you
the
go to
same
first-
stuff that Crumb had was what Philip K. Dick had?
Well, he explained that he got it from his dentist. Wait. Okay, yeah, just go zoom into that. He opened the door, talked to the woman, and saw the goldfish. Right? Can you zoom in? Can you zoom into that? So yeah, okay.
Sodium
California,
pentothal?
March 9th.
Sodium pentothal.
Yeah, pentothal. Yeah, sodium
The
pentothal.
original
yeah.
truth serum that we got from the concentration camps.
Oh God.
Oh, that's what it was. Oh my God. So you're laughing your ass off, and you're telling the truth, right? Now.
The truth you didn't even know you knew.
The
It's like
dentist-
Pinocchio
The truth
going
you didn't
next.
know. They don't even care most of the time. I had there's a fucking interrogation officer that we hired for security who was the head of BlackRock Security actually, and did I tell you this story? Do you know the story about the knife and at Rain Dance? Can I share a story really quick?
Yeah,
Take me 2 minutes. So like Tipper was playing. Tipper's a great musician, right? And so like I wasn't at the main stage. I was over at some picnic tables for whatever reason. And actually my old boss was there too before I worked for him. But anyway, there's a bunch of people sitting around, maybe 15 people or something. And this guy who we hired is fucking being interviewed by a student from UCSC about his experience with interrogation, working for the Marine Corps. And this guy goes by, he'd probably hate that I fucking sharing this. I don't care. But his name he went by Wild Child, and Marshall. Marshall's his actual name. And this guy fucking was being badgered by a UCSC student who was basically like being kind of an activist kind of style, where he's like super judgmental on that this guy worked for the interrogation with the military. And the guy's getting increasingly annoyed, this ex-veteran, and he gets to a point where he just fucking, long story short, but he takes out a fucking jagged edge knife, like a big old knife, and he goes, "Look, if I stick this up in your asshole, are you going to tell me that your name is Susan if I ask you if your name is Susan?" And the kid looked fucking terrified, and he said, "What?" And he said, "Is your name fucking Susan?" And the kid goes, "Yes." And he goes, "Okay, that's all I ever did for the United States government for interrogation. And you can go back and you can tell your teachers and your classmates that." And then the people sitting there got really freaked out and upset because they're like, "That was so inappropriate." And I fucking thanked the guy. And I said, "Dude, I'm like, I know that that's what goes on. The kid was asking you." He was like, I kind of was, being a bad victim, whatever, because I was like, "Dude, he fucking asked for it." And but that guy ended up letting me into Burning Man a few years later with my friend Aaliyah. We got turned away because we didn't have an early pass, or she didn't have her early pass, and we tracked him down. We're like, "Wait a minute, we know the head of security here. What the fuck are we doing?" We found him and he let us in, and he recognized me because I was one of the people that was like, "Fuck that was amazing, dude. Thanks for your service."
He held up a knife and the dude ran into the fire to get away.
You have no context, right?
I wanted to
my
ask you too, because I don't know if you did this intentionally, Dave, but you said that L. Ron Hubbard had written a book about nitrous oxide, and I found
I don't know if the book is about nitrous oxide, but he wrote it.
He wrote it as he was coming down off of it, just like Aldous Huxley kind of wrote his book coming down off mescaline. But the book that L. Ron Hubbard wrote as he was coming down off nitrous oxide was called Excalibur.
Really?
What?
I swear to God, yeah.
Oh my God, well, we got to sync here, man. We got to sync.
Finally, I needed a good sync, like
David,
a new one.
He's like in his suit. Tell them what they won. Right? I like it.
That's right. You identify yourself as Susie. Okay.
If you go to the wiki page, there's a quote from a guy named Jerry Armstrong, and it says that Hubbard had a couple of teeth extracted, recurring theme, and while he was under the effect of nitrous oxide, he came up with Excalibur.
Oh,
my computer's freezing on me. I hope you can hear me. All right, is it working? Okay, cool.
Here. I got a funny sync. Man,
yeah, that's it right there.
Talking about dentists and all the nitrous oxide. This is something I posted back in June. Hold on, I'm gonna send it to you. Hold on 1 second. Because I'm trying to get into this whole microchipping thing that's expanding right now. The newer link. Elon Musk.
You put your down payment down, Eddie. You back to Kickstarter.
Yeah.
His $8 down payment.
Yeah, if it's only $8.
Elon Musk said I'm a free subject. I get it for free. But,
no, you're gonna pay for it out of your taxes. It'll be like the tax.
Yeah, you just want to feel special. I know. Well, we're 2 hours deep.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys want to make sure I cover before I show
no.
them and get some more of your content?
Okay, one second. I was about to upload this picture.
This one's pretty
Where
funny.
the hell is it?
Yeah,
did you
I
hear
always
about Dan
thought that
Brown?
she was that Kirstie Alley when I was young and that they switched it over. I thought that Kirstie Alley was playing Diane Chambers, but no, she was a different character. Diane Chambers was dismissed. I don't remember the circumstances and was replaced
Still
by
hot.
Kirstie
Good
Alley.
for her. Yeah,
Yeah.
good for her.
Hey, Andreas, okay, look up the mail. I just uploaded in our mailbox.
Okay.
So this is what I'm worried about. This whole now we're in the sink with nitrous oxide and sodium pentothal and you know I'm starting to get into this thing where because there was this case, this crazy father in the dentistry. He started to beat up the nurses because he said that he thought that his wife has been injected with microchip in her tooth. And it reminds me of 12 Monkeys, which is also has a lot of COVID-19 sync as well. That old guy, the homeless guy, he's like, it's in the tooth, man. It's in the tooth. And the tracking chip is in the tooth. So,
Yeah.
And that's another sync right there because of Toothless, right? The Disney movie with Kirstie Alley, where she's the
Oh yeah.
Oh
Crazy.
shoot, man. This is full circle right here.
Well, maybe pull out the Dwayne Johnson. I think he played the Tooth Fairy too. But
no, I know this kid here in the picture. Who's this kid? What's his name? He's one of the twins, right? God, man, what's his name? Because I was working on the movie Moonshot, and he's the lead character. He's the lead actor.
Starring Dale Midkiff.
Oh no.
I don't know.
That's not him.
Maybe not.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Looks like it. Anyways, so and also one more thing before you shut down is Dan Brown. I talked about Loeb. Remember last time I talked about Loeb, the AI, the possible demon that has played the AI generator. The
Right.
With
Loeb, the AI demon.
Yeah. So backwards is Bao really. So Dan Brown he just tweeted saying this is a demon. He confirmed when he said ghost in the machine. If you go to his Twitter, he basically said that's what she is. She's
Oh god, that's terrifying. That reminds me of Momo. God, not Momo, the book from Michael End, or is that his name? The guy who did the Neverending Story. But yeah, Momo's fucking terrifying, man. Don't type in Momo into the search, whatever you do.
This is like Sam Mandy say it 3 times.
That was a thing in the early Buffy that they used like a computer to like read the code aloud and that summoned the demon. I feel like we're getting pretty close to that. Maybe that's part of what copyright's all for, keeping these symbols safe from us and what we're going to do to them. Because of course they're turning them evil right away.
They're doing all over the new Riverdale too. All these
Thomas, in 2024, you're gonna put Mickey Mouse in the comic?
Actually, yeah, it sounds like a pretty good idea. I've got him on a blanket, right? So I'm making my way there. The merch starts first, and then the book comes. Although historically, people that have made Disney parody comics have not fared well. Although that was all within the trademark and copyright. Right.
See, I don't want it to be a parody per se. I want it to be more like John Constantine. I guess it is a parody, but I want it to be like Mickey Mouse is a demon hunter. And he's trying to like get his life back together because Minnie Mouse still works for Disney and is part of the church still, and he's not.
Hey,
you know what I mean?
Type in Marilyn Manson Mickey Mouse. There's a sync that I found that's absolutely fucking solid that I don't feel comfortable sharing on the website. I don't feel like uploading it. I mean, I put it together. I have the file, but it's just like, so basically there was an album called The Golden Age of Grotesque. And Tracy Twyman helped me figure out this thing. So basically, what Marilyn Manson was referencing with that album was I was speaking to earlier about the German art that incorporated Mickey Mouse. And so this is not what I was looking for, but it's interesting nonetheless, is him posing with Mickey. But anyway, there's a movie called, I don't know how to pronounce it, Salo. Do you know that one? Extremely disturbing.
50 Days of, yeah. I don't know if the Strict Search is going to get that away.
Right. So this movie actually syncs insanely well with Marilyn Manson's album, The Golden Age of Grotesque, but it's too controversial for me to attach that on the website, I think. But Yeah,
Look at
anyway,
that, guys. Like things
so,
that you're
yeah.
even too dark for David.
Right. So Tracy Twyman made this connection for me, and then I put it together because it seems so obvious after the fact. But yeah, that definitely it's weird how this relates to Mickey Mouse, and that's a whole thing in and of itself. But
Man, I'm trying to remember where this comic is. I think it's called Air Pirates, and it was one of those like Mickey Mouse, not a direct parody, but it was like they used Mickey in their version of it. And it was like it was not endorsed at all by Disney.
Wow.
Adults only. I'm trying to find the actual inside of it because some of it's kind of, it's very risque. It's definitely an adult.
I feel like I would respect the intellectual property of Mickey Mouse. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah, there
it's
you
like
go.
really-
There's a good examples. Yeah.
I won't anybody F me. I'm Mickey. Ho 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 ho. Where are all the ho 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 ho's?
This is kind of a piece of history right here. These Air Pirates.
Pretty sweet.
You know the Blood and Honey, you know how Disney is losing all the copyright to the characters, right?
Indeed.
Well,
Blood and Honey's gonna be good.
What's the next one? Bambi. Yeah, they were trying to make. Did we talk about it? Bambi.
no, they're gonna ban Bambi because of Thumper was too horny, dude. Thumper was way too horny. They gotta ban Bambi as soon as
Bambi's already
possible.
pretty nuts if you think about it. But yeah, I'm sure that the horror movie will help you recognize. I mean, Bambi's a nuts. Like, is it not just about ecological non-humanism? It's like a communist look at like the problems of industry.
Dude, I've got a tangent to leave us with
Really?
maybe on Bambi, but I've been doing deep dive on all the different Disney movies, and Bambi struck me particularly because like the actual story is about humans moving in and cities taking over and then forcing all the animals out. That's kind of like a large aspect of it, but also Bambi, if you take it to its logical conclusion, right? Walt got a lot of hate because of how he did Bambi's mom in this. So
Right.
he kind of took a softer approach afterwards. But if you take a step back and just like mind experiment, right? Let's say that no one ever hunted deer again. Let's say that no one ever ate animals again, right? And deer in particular, deer have no natural predator on the planet Earth at this point, aside from like the rogue, mountain lion or something, and just tick disease or something. But
a really hungry mountain lion, yeah.
Turn them into an invasive species because of
exactly.
Bambi.
So even if we took and we had these like large, sort of like farms.
Rats. Go ahead, call them rats. They're freaking giant rats.
But even if we just filled rats and just let them eat all the vegetation they wanted, they would actually start to become so overpopulated because a lot of deer hunting is not just for people that like to hunt and people that want free food. It's literally to cull these animals that have no natural predators.
Rats that you get in front of your car and then people
But if
die.
we didn't do that, they would literally grow so massive without anyone else to fucking keep them under control that they would actually take over humans because they'd eat all of our vegetation. So it's kind of this interesting, like we don't look at deer as like this arch enemy, but really they could be because they don't have any other predators.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's so much, and there's a lot. All of the things that Walt Disney was trying to say with Bambi and how he forced kids to line up to see a deer's mother die so that you could relate to it, and like his whole vision of environmentalism, very, very Hitlerian at that level.
Yeah, you wouldn't sympathize the same way until they were anthropomorphized, or not just that. But no, that's
Bambi about Jewish persecutionism, Zionism, or something else. Is it anti-Semitism? Bambi: A Life in the Woods. It's about anti-Semitism. The idyllic Eden birds summon a menagerie of adorable woodland critters. A mouse washing its face with dewdrops. But wait, where's this? How is this anti-Semitism?
The whole thing about killing Bambi's mom is everything Disney's tradition is all about. The killing.
Bambi's about the Holocaust, of course.
The parents,
the Holocaust. We're destroying the lives of these deer.
Ultron, it's psychological trauma.
In the book, the animals are constantly hunted. Bambi's mother is not only one to die violently. All manner of fauna are disemboweled by their neighbors in the forest or shot by the horrifying humankind. The jays and magpies who greet Bambi's birth are most conspicuous when alerting deer and pheasants to man's encroachment. Bambi's first lesson after learning to walk is how to approach an open meadow where the slightest hint of danger he must prepare to dart back to the streets. Sipes and others have argued that Bambi is Jewish because Stalton was, though his Jewishness took on different forms throughout his life.
No, Bambi was clearly Palestinian.
Man, there's just always a place to take things,
Have you guys read that Mouse comic book, Mouse MAUS,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
by about the whole Holocaust story, by Art Spiegelman, right? I'm always fascinated by. Okay, so the Jews were the mouse, and then the Germans are the cats, the Poles are pigs, and what's the other?
Yeah, see, it actually gets pretty bad when you realize how racist it is against everybody. But yeah, Fievel was pretty much on that level too. I don't know. I gotta wonder about the mouse as a symbol. That might be something we have to dig in deeper, guys. I'm gonna pull us back to where we can look at some of your content. Let me go to there it was, Synchronous. If you want to try to tie this stuff together, you're gonna have to follow Eddie. Eddie's the one who's looking into it. Synchronous, and also the Facebook group right here, which you can get a lot of these different correlations that are being made.
Yeah,
all this.
I mean, I since Twitter has limited text space, so I post most of my comments in the group, so people know. I cannot post everything on Twitter. So
yeah, you could though. You can always do a reply and then you make a thread of your comments, which is David's been doing some of that. I'll look at MK Ultra.
Yeah. I was repeating myself too much, bothering to type stuff out, and then I realized, because I'm relatively new to Twitter, in the last year or whatever, so I'm just like, I can just quote tweet myself all the time in comments and stuff, and I want to not have to type out for the umpteenth time who paid the second biggest criminal fine in history of any company, and it was Pfizer.
It works well. I'm looking at your post here, and then there's another post. Each one's like a PowerPoint page. It's like a new presentation, and I can send this one or that one. So it's kind of, I can send just this quote to somebody.
Can I point out just here really quick, because I know we were talking about this before, but the IRM thing. So if you scroll down just a tiny bit and you see the next tweet there, how the International Raelian Movement, so which is abbreviated as IRM. So the interesting thing is that for the Raelian, I'm sure I'm pronouncing this wrong probably, but the Raelian thing is that they have a whole thing around nudity. And so if you read what they say when they honor Elon Musk, they're treating it with the nudity issue too. Is that they're like so the Raelian movement was all with Facebook had problems with them saying that women couldn't be topless but men could, and like all this where do we stand in terms of nudity? And so IRM in Hebrew, if you say ayin resh mem, you have aram. It's a word that occurs 2 verses right next to each other in Genesis, where it says Adam and Eve were naked and not ashamed, which is Aram is naked. And then the very next verse, it introduces a serpent who's the quote cunning. He's the most cunning of all the creatures in the garden. That word cunning is also Aram. So it's not a mistake that they have one word and then used in one verse, and the very next verse uses it in a completely different way. So you could just as easily say Adam and Eve were cunning and not ashamed, and the serpent was the most naked of all the creatures in the garden. And so the Raelian movement has this whole connection with nudity, and it seems like, I don't think it's a mistake that they're called IRM, which is also, by the way, a Charlotte Gainsbourg album that she produced with Beck, and Beck is a Scientologist, so there's that interesting aspect. But,
yeah, I mean, I wonder why there's no fat shaming of Adam and Eve. I think that's what it is. Like, like boobs are like little pot bellies, and I think that's what most people are afraid of. Maybe
if you see his snake, cover up.
Yeah. I don't know. I was afraid, even there with strict search. I'm pretty sure I saw the snake as like a strap on just now in Adam and Eve's Garden of Eden. So I'm going to leave it at that. Synchronous, the Sync book. If you go to thesyncbook.com, you can find your way to the Sync Media.
Yeah. So this is my most recent film for viewing. There's another 200 movies for free streaming and download. If you go up a little ways, Andreas, into the paragraph up there, and you see where it says Art by David Charles Plate right above Sorry Cassandra Misunderstood. You see that?
Right.
So click on Art. If you click on that, if you go into any one of these images and you click on an image that appeals to you, this is my business at Picture Appeal in Santa Cruz. I can send out G Clay prints on enhanced matte paper. They're extremely high quality posters.
Who's the monkey on Shelley Duvall's back?
That's actually Lady Gaga there. It's wrapped in saran wrap.
Oh my god. No.
Come on, guys. You need this in your life, Like, you need someone to walk by and be like, what is this about? And you can explain.
What's up with Lady Gaga popping up in Hunter Biden's camera? I don't know what the hell.
We don't know if that's really Lady Gaga, but that would be interesting if it was.
Could easily be someone else who loves crack cocaine. Come on.
It's a man, baby.
If you're going to buy a comic book, buy a Paranoid American. the best comic books in the world. You can also get yourself the MK Ultra pamphlet, of which I am a huge fan. Very affordable, along with also being very detailed. I mean, if you really want to just have the coolest comic book, it also tells you every fact about MK Ultra that you need. I mean, this is an amazing piece of art and a piece of history and a piece of education.
I like to promote this one right here. Is if you've got anyone that's on the fence, or if there's anyone that you think is like the anti-conspiracy theorist skeptic, every single date, name, everything you see in this entire pamphlet, you can look it all up. It's all accurate. There's pretty much no sort of subjective like accusations in this little pamphlet. If you like crazier stuff, all the other comics, I go, balls to the wall. But this one in particular, this one is meant to be sort of like something to sell you on it.
Dude,
right?
Also good for you, dude. There's so much shit out there. I like what you do, man.
Well, let me show you something too that I just added to the site. If you go up to comics and the only way to get to it, comics in the drop down, and then Illuminati at the very bottom, and we were talking about John Dee and Edward Kelly. If you scroll down just a little bit, a cult wife swap. This is actually a 12-page
based on a true story about an infamous alchemist.
And I've also, to the next of it, you see got Crowley and Bush. This is based on Aleister Crowley and Pauline Pierce, which was Barbara Bush's mom, that they might have had a little meeting.
Hey, that story came out on April Fool's, man. That story.
I know, but
all the good stuff comes out. Did you watch Men in Black? Yeah, National Enquirer, April Fool's. That's when all the disclosure.
And if you look on the bottom right there too, MK Ultra Hippie Assassins actually a retelling of The Old Man in the Mountain, but it takes place during the Summer of Love, San Francisco.
Wow.
In the sci-fi Ferrari. Come on. So good. It's so much fun.
Oh my god.
Yeah, definitely read the one-on-ones, and then Chosen One.
I gotta read that wife swap.
Get your issues before they run out, because that's how that goes. But get yourself a copy, and then also Secret Mystery School is pretty interesting. I haven't read this yet, but I've been looking at it. I'm very excited about this series.
Hey Thomas, I got a copy. I've been so busy, but I gotta read it. Thanks for I got it in the mail.
Yeah, man, hope you enjoy it.
Each one is just amazing artwork. The people you're working with, it's just awesome. Guys, go to paranoidamerican.com and get yourself a Paranoid American comic book or a set.
Hell yeah.
And then, if you love me, you can buy my Banana Plague hoodie. It's pretty sweet. Or the new Xirtus boots, which are fun to walk around in the snow.
I love those.
Yeah. If you go to, the Xirtus Metropolitan, you can also, there's different stuff. Metropolitan series is quite affordable. If you want to get there's designer stuff, there's affordable stuff, there's all wraparound stuff. And then, of course, there's the SYNCTANK TeePublic shirt and sweatshirt, which I'm wearing one of right now, and they're on sale.
Andreas, can't guarantee this is Asian sweatshop free.
Not sure if I can do that.
I'm joking.
I think this one might actually be chill. The Banana Plague one's definitely made by Yokel. I mean, as far as I can tell, but they're cool. So what I did was I went on Alibaba, and if you go to Alibaba and you look at all the places that make stuff, same with my rainbow glasses. My rainbow glasses I got made in Taiwan because I trusted the group more that's working on it. I think my Yokel stuff is also made in Taiwan. The company that does it is from Taiwan. So I do try to be careful, and I think Taiwan has better labor laws than China usually.
Hey, anyone here interested in helping me find some ethically sourced adrenochrome? And I'm not even saying that to joke. I'm saying that 100%.
Ethically.
Well, I mean, I assume most of it is organic. Most of it comes from animal byproduct, but
they don't use the leather to get it from the pineal gland or the adrenal gland.
I think a lot of the synthesized form is synthetic. I think a lot of it doesn't anymore come from natural sources. But yeah, if you want to discuss these kinds of things that are probably more intense than normal YouTube talk, although for us, whatever, let's do a whole episode on it. But go to the Discord, tartarinova.com. It'll connect you at the top. You click on that little weird symbol that I've got. That's like an X thing from Russia. If you're on the mobile, but it'll take you to the Discord entry. And then from Discord entry, it's growing every day, and you can probably find someone there who's a chemist. I'm not going to say for sure, but it happened. I don't know. Love you guys. Anything else you want to make sure I say before we go? I love you. I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Peace.